Chapter 972. There was a brigadier general among the cavalry who wore a silver 3-star emblem around his neck. He commanded about 500 men and commanded about 500 men. He urged his horse forward and raised his eyebrows. "Attendant Lon, you are a lord of the Spirit Medicine Division, but I advise you to stay out of Cathaya City's military affairs. This woman killed the city lord, and we must punish her severely according to the law." Several soldiers carried Zhou Xian's corpse over. A sword had pierced through his throat and it was a fatal wound. Lan Yen frowned and said, "Why is Lord Zhang wearing a black night suit? Why did you sneak into the Spirit Medicine Department's camp?" The brigadier general was taken aback for a moment before replying, "I don't know, but since this woman killed the city lord, we must arrest her. I know that Deacon Lan has a friendship with her, but I hope that Deacon Lan doesn't get involved in this matter. This is not something you should concern yourself with." Lan Yen said indifferently, "Xian is a doctor. As a doctor, why would she kill someone on a whim? I believe there must be a reason behind this. Why don't I take Xian back to Lan Yen City and hand her over to the Firefinch Department to investigate? What do you think, General?" "That won't do. Silver Fir City's matters should be handled by the garrison." The brigadier general didn't seem to hold back. He waved his hand and said, "Men, tie up this traveling doctor." A group of cavalrymen pulled out their swords and quickly surrounded Xian. However, the blazing moon in Xian's hand emitted a scorching light, forcing the group of people to retreat. Even the 6 dazzling wings behind Xian were faintly discernible. "Who dares touch me?" Xian's eyes were cold. "These people wanted to assassinate me, so I killed them. Come at me if you don't want to live. I'll kill every single one of you." Lan Yen gaped. At this moment, Xian didn't look like a traveling doctor at all. She looked more like a goddess of war. Just at that moment, the sound of galloping horses could be heard from the distance. Before the horses could catch up, a figure broke through the spatial barrier and appeared in the middle of everyone. It was a divine-level expert. She wore a white robe and had an exquisite and beautiful figure. If it wasn't Chu Yao, who else could it be? "What is it?" Chu Yao looked around. "What brings you here, Grand Administrator?" Lan Yen was overjoyed. Chu Yao frowned. "I heard that the plague in Cathaya City is very serious and is spreading to the north, so I came to take a look. What's going on here?" The brigadier general and the others also recognized Chu Yao. The chief administrator of the Spirit Medicine Department was someone who attended every court meeting. She was an important existence in the Empire's 6 ministries and 3 ministries. "Greetings, Grand Administrator." The brigadier general quickly got off his horse and knelt down. He knew very well how important Chu Yao was in Lan Yen City. She wasn't just a simple grand administrator, but someone close to Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi and Feng Jixing. She was an insider who wielded real power in the empire. It was best not to provoke such a person unless one was tired of living. "You still haven't told me what's going on." Chu Yao glanced at Xian, then at Lan Yen. What's going on?" Xian looked at Chu Yao with a condescending gaze. Although Xian wasn't as strong as Chu Yao, who was a divine realm expert, she was many times stronger in terms of mental cultivation. Lan Yen bowed. "Great Deacon, the deadly blood disease has basically been cured." "Cured? What happened?" Chu Yao was stunned. "It's the help of a traveling doctor named Xian. She provided us with a prescription and decocted the medicine according to the prescription. The epidemic has basically been controlled." "A traveling doctor?" Chu Yao looked at Xian in astonishment. The surname was very strange. She had only heard of the surname Shi once. It was Qin Yin's name in Lingnan Xin. However, she seemed to have heard of the name Xian before, but Chu Yao couldn't remember where she heard it. Moreover, Xian didn't look like a local. She had a head of light blonde hair and a figure that made Chu Yao a little jealous. To be honest, very few women in the Shattered Cauldron realm had such a figure. At the same time, when Chu Yao's eyes met Xian's, she felt like she was looking into a vast domain. She couldn't see through Xian's depths at all. This kind of person wasn't simple. It was best to be cautious. And so Chu Yao became respectful. "Many thanks to Miss Xian for controlling the plague for Cathaya City." Chu Yao thanks Miss Xian on behalf of all the people of the world. Xian raised her eyebrows. He found this rather amusing. This Chu Yao didn't look like a low official, but she wasn't as arrogant as the others. She nodded. "There's no need to be so polite, Chu Yao. It was at this moment that the brigadier general frowned. Great Attendant, this Miss Xian killed Lord Zhou Xian and a dozen or so brothers of Cathaya City not too long ago. Their corpses are all here and we have both witnesses and evidence. Chu Yao's gaze swept across the scene. She was extremely intelligent and immediately understood the reason behind it. Zhou Xian must have tried to kill Xian because of her beauty or some other unspeakable reason, but Xian had killed him in the end. This kind of person's death wasn't something to be regretted, and there was no need to pay any attention to him. Thus Chu Yao consoled, "Do not worry, General. I will personally bring Xian to Lanyan City and hand her over to Lord Xiao Han of Firefinch Bureau. If you are still worried, you can come with me to the capital." The brigadier general was taken aback. He hurriedly cupped his fists. "There's no need. I trust you, Great Attendant. Please make the decision." He had also done a lot of shady things with Zhou Xian in private, and these kinds of people were most afraid of meeting people like Xiao Han of the Fire Sparrow Division. If they went to meet Xiao Han together, it was possible that before they could avenge Zhou Xian, Xiao Han might find out about their own dirty secrets. "Then let's do it this way," Chu Yao said indifferently. "We will depart at dawn and return to Lanyan City. It just so happens that you and Her Highness should be returning as well." "Yes, Great Attendant," everyone replied in unison. Xian smiled faintly. She had heard it clearly. The Her Highness that Chu Yao spoke of was probably Xin, wasn't it? It had been a long time since she had seen her younger sister, and it actually made Xian a little nervous. At daybreak they sped along the official road back to Lanyan City. They had arrived after 2 days and 2 nights of travel. February 8th, Lanyan City. Not long after Chu Yao and the rest entered the spiritual medicine department, they heard the news that the Empress Qin Yin had returned to Zetian Palace Hall. As such, Chu Yao brought Xian Lanyan and the rest to Zetian Palace Hall before they could even have lunch. The staff of the spiritual medicine department knew some martial arts, so even a weak girl like Lanyan knew how to ride a horse. The group of people rode tall horses on the bustling streets of Tongtian Street, and it was particularly eye-catching. Xian, on the other hand, looked at everything around her with a gloomy gaze. She found it hard to believe that this was the city that Xian had ruled over. It was indeed incomparably prosperous. Even if it was compared to the most prosperous city under the rule of the Western God Realm, it would not lose out to the most prosperous city under the rule of the Western God Realm. The commoners, on the other hand, looked at them with astonishment and respect. The plague was rampant in the empire, and it was this group of white-robed staff of the spiritual medicine department who were running around the borders of the plague. They had long won the respect of the people. Furthermore, many of these staff were young and beautiful women, and they were simply too eye-catching. Zetian Palace Hall was as dignified and solemn as ever. When Chu Yao brought Xian into the main hall, the guards outside the hall slowly rang the bell 3 times. Inside the hall it wasn't court time. Qin Yin, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were still wearing the clothes they wore in the Celestial Pole continent. When they heard that Chu Yao had something to discuss with them, they came out to welcome her. Qin Yin's eyes were still closed. Supported by Tang Xiaoxi, she walked over. She couldn't capture Xian's aura because Xian's aura was too weak at the moment, no different from that of an ordinary person. Lin Muyu took another look at Xian. He never knew that there was such a beauty in Lanyan City. Xian also saw Lin Muyu. Sure enough, she was as handsome as the rumors said. Moreover, there was a faint sense of righteousness between her brows. This kind of righteousness was probably rare in the lower realms, even in the immortal realm. But when he thought of the Western divine realm, which pursued power at all costs, Xian couldn't help but laugh at himself. Staring at Lin Muyu with her beautiful eyes, Xian raised her index finger to her lips, signaling him not to speak. Lin Muyu didn't know what was going on. If he didn't want to speak, then so be it. Anyway, Xian's aura wasn't that strong, so there was no need to worry. "Sister Chu Yao, why did you come to us in such a hurry?" Qin Yin smiled. "I wanted to bring someone to see you." "Your Highness, you can open your eyes." "But I..." Qin Yin hesitated for a moment. After all, her eyes of blazing light were rarely seen by others. At this moment Xian smiled faintly and said, "It's okay. Open your eyes." Qin Yin's body trembled. She remembered Xian's voice. Her eyelashes kept trembling and jumping. When she opened her eyes of blazing light, she saw Xian's beautiful face. "Sister Haiyan." Qin Yin was stunned. Xian nodded and smiled. "How is it?" Surprising, right? Qin Yin walked forward while trembling. She held Xian's hands gently and said, But why is your cultivation gone? Sister Haiyan, what's going on? Two streams of tears flowed down her eyes. Qin Yin knew how important Xian's cultivation was. I'm fine, silly girl. Xian wiped her tears lovingly. Lin Muyu frowned and said, Lady Xian, did you destroy your own divine pact? Otherwise you wouldn't have lost your cultivation. Yes. Xian nodded and didn't deny it at all. She said, I went to the heaven realm without permission and violated the divine pact. My cultivation was taken by the law of heaven and earth. But this is also good. Also, you don't call me lady. Call me sister. I'm Xian's sister. You should take after her. Hey, Sister Xian. Hee. That's right. It feels good to have a younger brother. Lin Muyu wasn't in the mood to joke. She said, Sister Xian, you went to the heaven realm and lost your cultivation. That means you betrayed the Western divine realm. Aren't you afraid that Claude will send people to kill you? I am. That's why I came to find you. With you guys protecting me, I'll be safe. Chapter 973. Actually, even if Claude doesn't chase after you, you're still in danger. Lin Muyu said, in the plain where the Celestial Pole Continent and the Shattered Cauldron Realm are located, there are still quite a number of perfected gods, and all of them are from the Celestial Pole Continent, right? Yes. Xian nodded and smiled. When I just arrived, I sensed the auras of 7 perfected god the Arch Realm experts. They are indeed in the east, not in the Shattered Cauldron Realm. 7 auras. Qin Yin was slightly stunned. Why are there so many? Lin Muyu pondered for a while and said, Sikong Ming from the Tianji sect, Han Yuan from the Celestial Empire, Longxi from the Thunder Blaze sect, and Nushi from the Demon Emperor. These 4 are all god thearchs above the 90th level. The other 3 auras should be from the Wolf Valley and the Thunder Soul tribe, the 2 hidden forces of the Celestial Pole Continent. However, they don't participate in the war, so we don't have to consider them for the time being. Xian said softly, there are so many strong enemies. No wonder the Shattered Cauldron Realm is fighting so hard. As she spoke, Xian's gaze landed on Tang Xiaoxi and she couldn't help but praise. Such strong fire law of divinity and demonic energy. This young lady must be Tang Xiaoxi, right? Yes, it's me. Greetings, Sister Haiyan. You're welcome. Tang Xiaoxi was naturally lively and cute. Perhaps Xian was influenced by her. After sizing up Tang Xiaoxi, she said, Xiaoxi, your cultivation is probably the fastest between you and Xin. In less than a year, your godhead will definitely evolve into a fire law overgod godhead. Oh. Tang Xiaoxi opened her mouth wide. Really? How could this be fake? Xian smiled. Although I have lost my cultivation, my eyes are definitely not wrong. The power of your forged immortal lattice has already greatly surpassed that of an ordinary forged immortal lattice. I can feel a scorching power even before the power is released. This is a sign of evolving into a master god lattice. As long as you work hard, you will be able to achieve it in a single step. All right, thank you for your kind words, Sister Haiyan. Qin Yin said, since you've come to the mortal world, you can live with us in the future. In this way, you, Xiaoxi, and Sister Chu Yao can ask you if there's anything we don't understand in cultivation. Xian chuckled. Yes. Since I'm here, I don't plan on leaving. Besides, there's no place for me in the 3 realms. How can that be? This Shattered Cauldron realm will be your home in the future. Okay. Someone, Jingyue, give the order to clean up a bright and spacious room in the Phoenix Perching Hall. Sister Haiyan can live next to me. Yes, Your Highness. By the way, where are Terralin Lake and Zhou Xian? They're in seclusion. Qin Yin couldn't help but feel a little guilty. After all, Xian used to be a blazing angel and Terralin and the other 2 had openly betrayed the Western Heaven realm. According to Xian's temper, it would be strange if she didn't beat them up. Why are they in seclusion? Let them come out to see me. I want to lecture them. Qin Yin arranged for the imperial chef to make a sumptuous lunch while inviting Terralin and the others out of seclusion. As a result, a large table of sumptuous lunch was set up in the back hall of the Zetian Palace at noon. It was as if they were celebrating the New Year's Eve festival. When Terralin and the others arrived, they saw that Xian was also there. They immediately fell silent. Even Terralin, who would usually be killed by delicious food, was quiet. She sat there dignified and didn't dare to say a word. Why don't you look up at me, you three? Xian smiled lightly. Terralyn stood up and quickly bowed. Lady Xian, we know our mistakes. You also know your mistakes? Xian was so angry that she gritted her teeth and said, Aren't you afraid of dragging down your respective families? You're running amok here. Fortunately, the Western Divine Realm is in a mess right now and we need the strength of your three great families. Otherwise, your fathers will definitely be dragged down by you and they might even lose their lives. Father's fine. Terralyn was pleasantly surprised. Yes, he's fine for the time being. There have been hundreds of rebellions and wars at the border of the heavenly realm. The ruler has ordered the major families to suppress them, so he won't do anything to them for the time being. Terralyn was overjoyed. She cautiously asked, Then, Lady Xian, have you really given up your identity as a seraph and voluntarily become immortal? Yes, I'm not a god anymore. Xian looked at the delicious food in front of her and smiled. Being immortal seems to be much happier than being an immortal. I finally understand why Xin and you are unwilling to ascend. No way. Terralyn pointed at Qin Yin and Lin Muyu and smiled. Don't even mention how bitter these two have been in the lower realm. Not only were they forced to flee by the army of the Celestial Pole continent, but in the end, they were also bullied by a group of trash in the Congress. I'm dying of laughter. These gods of the mortal realm have so many rules. For the sake of the common people they are unwilling to kill. If it were me, the 500,000 soldiers of the Congress would definitely kill them all. Qin Yin stared at her speechlessly. Even meat can't stop your mouth. That's not called rules, that's called foundation. The foundation left by our ancestors can't be abandoned just because we say so. This is a responsibility. Once we complete our mission we will go to the divine realm. This is something that I, you and Xiaoxi have already agreed on. Lin Muyu said, Originally, if Sister Xian, the top god emperor of the 99 heavenly caves, came to help us, we would be able to unify the plane with much less effort, but now it seems, this road is still very long. Xian curled her lips. At this moment a voice came from the sky. Not necessarily. With a schwa sound, a ray of golden light fell from the sky and directly poured a few meters away from the dining table. On the surface of the floor tiles Dharma images and wheels appeared, and in the blink of an eye, they gathered to form a beautiful figure. It was actually Xiao of the East Heaven. This time, the one who came was a genuine god emperor expert of the 99 heavenly caves great garden. Xian was stunned. She turned around and stood up from her seat and looked at Xiao. Long time no see, Xian. Xiao smiled lightly. Xian also smiled. Fairy Xiao, long time no see. This time you came to kill me or? Kill you. Xiao smiled. Why would I? We have been enemies and friends for so many years. Now that you are Xiao Yin's sister, you will only be our friend and this time I came to help you. Oh. Lin Muyu stood up and said, Sister Xiao, let's not talk about this. Come and eat with us. Xiao's celestial aura was reduced to that of a mortal by her words. Is there anything delicious? It's all delicious. Oh. Therefore Xiao joined them at the lunch. While eating, Lin Muyu asked, Sister Xiao said that you will help us. How do you want to help us? Xiao said, Although your cultivation progress is very fast among the gods of the mortal world, it is still too slow for us. Once the gods of the celestial pole land wake up, and the western divine realm may send gods down, I am afraid that Lanyan City will be destroyed. Therefore, after discussing with the demon emperor, I decided to send you to another plane to train and improve your cultivation. Of course, the main reason I came here is for Xian. For me. Xian was slightly stunned. Yes. Xiao nodded and said, The divine pact was made by the two of us together. Logically we should bear the punishment together, but Xian, for Xiao Yin, you alone bear this price that even the gods can't bear. The demon emperor and I have decided to find a way to help you recover the cultivation that was taken away by the laws of heaven and earth. Can we really do that? Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi asked together. Xian was silent. She knew how difficult it was. Why not? Xiao smiled. Right now Xian's body is like a dry lake. Although her power has been completely taken away, the lake is still there. What we need to do is to irrigate the lake with water. This will replenish your power. No, it's useless. Xian shook her head. I've tried to refine divine power again, but many times, the little bit of divine power I refined would quickly disperse into the world. My body can no longer hold any divine power. That's right. But this is the divine power you refined in the three realms. It will naturally disperse according to the laws of the divine pact. But what if you didn't cultivate it in the three realms? Will it still disperse according to the laws of the divine pact? Xian was shocked. Xiao, what do you mean by that? I want to say that I'll send you Xiaoyin and Xiaoxi to another realm outside the three realms to train. I wonder if Xian is willing? Can I really recover my divine power? Yes. Xiao looked at her sincerely and said, even if I want to harm you, I will never harm you and Xiaoyin, right? Qin Yin said, Sister Haiyan, let's go. Xian lost her cultivation for Qin Yin. Qin Yin already felt very guilty about it. Now that there was a chance for her to repay it, she was naturally willing. Xian narrowed her eyes. From what I know, other than the sky beyond heaven, there is no other place outside the three realms, right? No, there is. It's north of the east heaven, a crack at the extreme of heaven and earth. The primordial wilderness? That's right. Xian was shocked. No, Xin and Yu's physique can't withstand the impact of passing through the crack. Unless they are in the God Emperor realm, they will definitely be devoured by the profound energy in the crack. Moreover, the primordial wilderness is completely different from where we are. If we go there, who knows how long it will take for us to return. This is absolutely not possible. But what if I have this? Xiao gently opened her palm. Light instantly appeared and a huge wheel appeared between her hands. The wheel was engraved with a scale and some incomprehensible golden characters. The Northern Region Wheel? PM was shocked. Isn't this the divine artifact that the Northern Divine Realm has lost for tens of thousands of years? That's right. Ziyao chuckled. This is something I accidentally discovered in the primordial desolate ruins. If I use the Northern Heavenly Wheel to send the four of you to the primordial desolate land, it will be equivalent to opening up a completely different space. Furthermore, I can use the scale of the Northern Heavenly Wheel to make the 10 years you spend in the primordial desolate divine realm just 1 year in the shattered cauldron realm. Lin Muyu couldn't help but slap the table in astonishment. Go go go. Don't stop me. Shi Yen. Qin Yin. Chapter 974. However, going to the primordial god realm isn't that simple. I've just said that the primordial god realm is still a part of the Eastern Heaven realm. Moreover, it's located in a distant land at the border of the Eastern Heaven realm. The first requirement to go to the primordial god realm is to be in the divine realm. Xiao took a deep look at everyone and said, in short, if you want to go to the ancient god realm to practice, you must first ascend to the Eastern Heaven realm and enter the divine book of the Eastern Heaven realm before you can go to the ancient god realm. Ascend? Lin Muyu was stunned. Her overall plan was going to be disrupted. She originally planned to deal with everything in the mortal realm and turn the Qin Empire into a benign regime under the control of the parliament before leaving. She did not expect that Xiao would want them to ascend to the heaven realm now. Xiao also figured out what Lin Muyu meant, so she smiled and said, in fact, it is very simple. After ascending to the divine realm, you can still descend to the mortal realm just like me. But every time you descend to the mortal realm, your cultivation will be weakened by a part. But the higher your cultivation, the less the reduction will be. For example, it will take me about half a month to recover the lost cultivation. 4 ordinary gods, Di Lin will lose 10% to 20% of their cultivation. The cultivation of the 4 of you is not bad. The cost of returning to the mortal realm is at most 3 to 5 months of cultivation. So have you decided? Qin Yin nodded gently. I have no problem with it. Tang Xiaoxi also said, I will go with Xiao Yin and Mu. Lin Muyu nodded and said, Xian has now lost her divine power. Can she still withstand the impact of the flowing light? Moreover, Xian has no divine power now. Can she ascend? Yes. Xian smiled with a resolute look in her eyes. Although I don't have my divine power, my Qi still retains a part of my cultivation before I broke the contract. Just this cultivation alone is enough for me to ascend. Moreover, even though I don't have my divine power, I still have my godhead. My body is also a divine body that has been tempered by divine power. The impact of the flowing light won't hurt me at all. Lin Muyu was still in disbelief and looked at Xiao. Xiao pursed her lips and smiled. Don't worry, I will protect you when you ascend. There won't be any mistakes. A 99th stage Grotto Heaven God Emperor personally protecting you during your ascension isn't something an ordinary deity can enjoy. Thank you, big sister Xiao. Lin Muyu nodded and said, however, we still have some unfinished business in the Shattered Cauldron realm. So, you have to wait for us for 3 days. After we have finished our business, we can ascend without any distractions. All right. Within 3 days, Lin Muyu went back and forth to solve all kinds of conflicts between the National Assembly, the Longdan Army Camp and the Imperial Guards. She also temporarily appeased Zhuang Yan, Su Changjing and the others. At least Wei Chou Feng Jixing and the others would not dare to act rashly in the capital. At this time, the Longdan Army Camp had recovered to its original size of 100,000 people, and the Imperial Guards also had 80,000 people. In terms of combat power, they were far above the National Army. Now that the National Army was restless, it was already good enough that the Longdan Army Camp and the Imperial Guards didn't deal with them. Qin Yin personally commanded the martial arts practice in the Sacred Martial Palace. As the largest place to provide talents in the empire, the Sacred Martial Palace couldn't be neglected. With the female empress personally teaching, the staff of the Sacred Martial Palace were naturally flattered and became more active. Tang Xiaoxi made a trip to the Forest of Infinity to meet Tang Zhen and Ling Huyen. She arranged the affairs of the National Army and the Demon Race Army for a year. This way, even if Tang Xiaoxi wasn't around, there wouldn't be any major problems in the Forest of Infinity. Within 3 days, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin were also invited by the Department of Weapons of the Ministry of Works to watch the first steam-powered car in operation. Early in the morning, the spring mist permeated the sky above Longyan City. Amidst the sound of horse hooves, Lin Muyu and the others arrived at the spacious testing ground of the Department of Weapons. Even Shi Yan and Xiao came. The officials of the Department of Weapons knelt on both sides and were extremely respectful. Xiling, are you ready? Lin Muyu asked. Qin Xiling was nearing middle age, but his forehead was full and his face glowed with health. The age when his career was at its peak was also his best years. He smiled smugly and said, "Yes, I'm ready. Marshal Lin, do you want to order them to drive over now?" "Yes." Qin Xiling nodded and raised his arm. "Beat the drum." Dong dong dong. After 3 beats of the drum, a toot-toot-toot sound came from afar. A big guy appeared in the fog. It was a supersized steam-powered car. It didn't look like a car at all. It was almost as big as the giant elephant in the Forest of Dragons. 2 soldiers were constantly adding coal to the stove. Thick steam rose. The car's 4 huge wheels rolled over the ground. Its speed wasn't slow, at least 80 kilometers per hour. "Is this the normal speed?" Lin Muyu asked. "Yes." Qin Xiling said, "On flat ground it might be faster but not by much. The stove is not strong enough." "Can this machine operate for a long time?" "It can." Qin Xiling said confidently, "I've studied it with teacher Luojia. The material used to cast the steam engine is the precious 1,000-year black iron. Can withstand high temperature and is extremely tough. It won't be a problem even if it burns for a day and a night." "Oh." Lin Muyu calculated quickly. At a speed of 80 kilometers per hour, it'll be 800 kilometers in 10 hours. In 24 hours it'll be close to 2,000 kilometers. Excluding the bumpy roads along the way plus the slower speed after transporting the goods, it should be able to travel 1,000 kilometers a day. In 5 days we can deliver the goods from Longyan City to Winterfrost City. Based on the speed we used to transport the military provisions with carriages, it'll take us at least a month to reach Winterfrost City. It's too fast. Qin Xiling smiled and said, "That's right. However, there are still many difficulties. For example, we have to widen all the official roads in the empire and build roads exclusively for steam-powered cars. In addition, we have to build coal stations along the way. Otherwise, the steam-powered cars will lose their power due to the lack of coal. All of these will require a lot of time and resources." "I know. Just cooperate with the Ministry of Works Minister on this matter." Lin Muyu glanced around. The Ministry of Works Minister not far away immediately cupped his fists and said, "Please rest assured, Lin General. I'll do my best to help Lord Qin Xiling complete all the tasks." "And that's good." Lin Muyu looked at the speeding car and could not help but say proudly, "How is it, Xiao Xian? Our mortal realm's motorcycles look very mighty, don't they?" Xiao pursed her lips into a smile and did not say anything. On the other hand, Shi Yan narrowed her beautiful eyes and said, "Oh? I remember that a certain plane in the Western Divine Realm has already started to use a type of hover motorcycles. Some use electromagnetic motorcycles. There are even some planes that have developed technology to the point where warships can travel at hyperspace speed. In comparison, this steam-powered car that you guys developed, is indeed very ornamental. Feels like looking at an antique. Lin Muyu rubbed her nose angrily. Why don't you take a look at what this plane was like before? It was an agricultural era, and now there is a steam-powered car. I can be considered to have pushed technology forward by 100 years. Then you still need to popularize electricity. Xian laughed softly. Otherwise, if electronic technology does not develop, I'm afraid that they will still be stuck in the steam era for several hundred years. And that makes sense. What kind of nonsense is that? Xian raised her beautiful eyebrows and said, do you think popularizing technology like this is really a good thing? Why not? Xian said, I have seen many planes with very advanced technology, but the physique and cultivation of humans are constantly deteriorating. They rely too much on technology, so much so that they neglect their own cultivation. Such planes are indeed very powerful against outsiders, but if 10 great perfection realm god emperors appear at the same time, they can more or less destroy the entire plane. The gods of the divine realm are well versed in the technological level of each plane, but each plane knows nothing about the power of the gods. That is the reason why they are ruled. Very reasonable. Lin Muyu nodded. Perhaps what you said is very right, so this is also the biggest reason why Shattered Cauldron Realm needs Sister Xian to recover your power. Right now we really need a blazing angel to be our spokesperson. Only then will we not be afraid of the group of god emperors in the celestial pole continent. For the sake of this plane, you have really put in a lot of effort. I have no choice. The previous emperor of this plane recognized me as his godson. One must finish what he started. I can't just pat my butt and not care about anything else after ascending. I can't do something like that. No wonder Xin likes you so much. Qin Yin. On the 4th day the appointed time arrived and everyone was about to ascend. Feng Jixing, Qin Yan, Situ Sin, Wei Chou, Chu Yao, Ouyang Yan, Chu Chu and the others were all present. After all, the few people who were ascending this time were really too important. Even Empress Qin Yin had ascended together with them, so how could they not be worried? The most important thing was that no one knew what the primordial god realm was like. What if they couldn't return? Therefore Feng Jixing kept muttering in his heart, what if Ayu and her highnessing don't come back? Should I just slip away and ascend or continue to fight with the celestial pole continent? At the thought of fighting, Feng Jixing's scalp went numb. Lin General, you have to come back soon. Wei Chou said. Situ Shue's eyes were red. Sir, you and her highness must come back. Situ Sin pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword and said, can't you let the marshal ascend with peace of mind? Lin General, don't worry. If you really can't come back, I will take care of Great Deacon Chu Yao, Ouyang Yan, Jin Xiaotang and Lady Xianxia of 100 Flowers Tower. You won't have any worries. Immediately, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi shot burning gazes at Lin Muyu. Who is Lady Xianxia? Lin Muyu cried bitterly in her heart. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have followed Situ Sin and Wei Qiu to the brothel. She hurriedly explained, it's just a dancer, I didn't do anything, listen to me. Explain my ass. The scene was chaotic, but Xiao coughed and controlled the situation. Stop fooling around. The few of you think about ascending in your heart, then choose the heavenly gate that belongs to the Eastern Heaven Realm and fly in. Chapter 975. That's it. Of course. Let's begin. Lin Muyu closed her eyes and silently chanted, ascend. Suddenly, a mysterious force spread out in the sky. When Lin Muyu opened her eyes, she saw 4 dazzling golden gates above her head. The Western Divine Realm Heavenly Gate with angel wings, the Eastern Divine Realm Heavenly Gate with an ancient divine dragon circling around it, the Northern Divine Realm Gate guarded by a snow lion, and the Southern Divine Realm Gate guarded by a golden python totem. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's jaws dropped in shock. 4 gates appeared in the sky at the same time. This was simply too mysterious. Xiao moved her red lips and said, that's right. The gate with the ancient divine dragon circling around it is the Eastern Divine Realm. It's also the place we're going to. Send your telekinesis into the Eastern Divine Gate and there will naturally be divine power guiding you to ascend into the realm of the gods. Okay. Lin Muyu responded and sent her telekinesis into the Eastern Divine Gate. As expected, the golden light of the Heavenly Gate became even more dazzling. Beams of divine power transformed into ancient golden characters that descended from the sky and circled around Lin Muyu. They guided his body to ascend straight towards the heavenly gate. At the same time, Sanskrit chants sounded in his ears, as if an ancient prophecy was repeatedly echoing. A comfortable feeling surged into his body. Lin Muyu didn't forget to take a look and saw that Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were flying towards the eastern divine gate at the same time. As for Xian, she was holding onto the Qihua sword and slowly releasing her divine power. She quickly followed. As for Ziyao, her escort, she floated over. She was really too familiar with this path of ascension. Looking up, the heavenly gate was completely open. Huge golden seals appeared on both sides of the gate. Each seal represented the name of a god. Countless seals extended into the distance. "Exalted God, your name." An ancient voice sounded. Lin Muyu replied without thinking, "Lin Muyu." With a schwa sound, a small amount of divine power in his body turned into a ray of light and shot into the distance. In the distance there was a stone pillar that soared into the sky. It was the divine stone of the Eastern Heaven realm. At this moment, the name of Lin Muyu in the divine book slowly appeared on the divine stone. It was a name that was used to compile books. The 3 words Lin Muyu were clear and powerful, making people secretly exclaim in admiration. Just as the name appeared on the divine stone, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth transformed into beams of light that shot straight into Lin Muyu's body. He immediately let out a whimper. What powerful energy from the divine world! No wonder everyone in the world wanted to ascend. This is the blessing of East Heaven. Every ascended god who enters the divine world will receive a portion of the blessing that belongs to them. Enjoy this blessing. Ziyao chuckled. Not only Lin Muyu, but even Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi also closed their eyes and enjoyed the blessings of the divine power of heaven and earth. The tide of God in her body kept surging. In less than 30 minutes, the strength of the divine power in Lin Muyu's body had increased by at least 10%. The tide of God surged continuously and broke through 2 hidden entrances, reaching the 55th grotto heaven level. Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin, on the other hand, had advanced to the 47th and 57th grotto heaven level respectively. On the other hand, under the impact of the divine power, Xian spread out the 6 wings of the blazing angel behind her back. Her cultivation suddenly entered the 36th divine king realm. However, this kind of power disappeared like a flash in the pan. Under the restriction of the divine pact, all her cultivation quickly flowed away and the divine power in her body returned to 0. She still looked like a mortal. She seemed to have expected this and smiled helplessly. As expected, it's still the same. The 4 of them stepped on the void and surrounded the Eastern Heaven realm divine stone. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi looked around in surprise. The divine world's spiritual mountains surrounding the Eastern Heaven realm divine stone were like celestial mountains connected by iron chains in the sky. Auspicious clouds covered the sky and from time to time, immortals flew and shuttled back and forth, chasing after the stars and the moon. It was very comfortable. Ziyao said, "Xian, this is the border of the East Heaven and still belongs to the 3 realms. Therefore you can't gather your divine power. However, after entering the ancient desolate god realm, it will be different. After you enter the ancient desolate god realm, every drop of your cultivation will be preserved and will not be taken by the divine pact." At this moment, white clouds appeared behind them and figures appeared in the clouds. Banners fluttered in the wind and they looked very dignified. Ziyao couldn't help but smile. "The demon emperor is here to welcome us." Lin Muyu and Qin Yin smiled at the same time and turned around. Surrounded by the crowd, the 7 luminaries demon emperor descended from the sky on a violent flame cloud. He opened his arms and laughed. You brat, you are finally willing to ascend. I have been waiting for you for a long time." Behind him, thousands of gods from the Eastern Heaven realm knelt in the air. "Greetings, demon emperor." "Oh, inspiring, too domineering." Lin Muyu squinted while staring at the fiery cloud under the 7 brilliance demon monarch's feet and said, "How much fire god force does it take to form this fiery cloud? It's obvious that you're flying with your own strength instead of relying on the fiery cloud. Brother demon monarch, it has been so many years, yet you're still so focused on your appearance." The 7 luminaries demon emperor's face darkened. "Brat Lin Ruoji, you want to quarrel with me the moment we meet? Do you want to fight? Come on." Lin Muyu pulled out the Xianyuan sword and a light flashed into the blade. With a buzz, starlight burst into the sky and shot towards the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor seemed to have expected this. He swung the Pangu axe horizontally and waved the one bright life flurry. Bang! Heaven and earth lost color. After the 2 divine weapons collided, they collapsed backwards. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to return the Xianyuan sword to its sheath. The gods were shocked. What kind of tradition was it to fight as soon as they met? Wasn't it said that the person who ascended this time was the brother of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor? Why did they fight as soon as they met? However, in the next moment Lin Muyu and the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor had already clenched their fists and laughed. How are you in the mortal realm? I'm not dead. Big brother, how are you in the heaven realm? Look at my ostentatious appearance. How is it? There are more than 20,000 clergymen in East Heaven. Among them there are more than 3,000 young goddesses. Most of them are in the southern border. When are we going to? Cough cough. Qin Yin coughed. Tang Xiaoxi also looked angry. Lin Muyu looked up at him. Do you want me to die? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor smiled awkwardly. I didn't expect you to bring your own. Then we'll talk about it later. Anyway, there's still a long way to go. Since you have ascended to become a member of my East Heaven realm, what kind of position do you want? You also have 2 sisters-in-law. Just tell me what kind of position you want. Oh, by the way, my old friend Lord Blazing Angel Xian, you can also ask for a position. The corner of Xian's mouth rose. I don't want to be a blazing angel. Why would I be greedy for a position in the divine realm? However, Lin Muyu didn't refuse. He knew that power and position might not be very important, but having power and position meant that no one would dare to bully you. So he asked, what position is more important? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor was speechless. Sun Feng, take the Eastern Divine Realms roster and see what the highest position is. Yes. A golden scroll appeared in Sun Feng's hand. With a swoosh, countless names turned into golden light and flew up. He carefully looked at it and said, Your Majesty, Demon Emperor. Ever since Your Majesty removed the position of Left Marshal Lu Huan because of the Battle of Qingba, it has been vacant. Left Marshal Lu Huan is in charge of 8,000 gods, 3,000 planes and 96,000 galaxies. This is currently the highest vacant position. Left Marshal Lu Huan. Lin Muyu narrowed his eyes. Is it powerful? Powerful. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor lowered his voice and said, Do you know what it means to be in charge of 3,000 planes? This means that 3,000 worlds are your private fiefdom. Each world has hundreds of millions of people. Among these hundreds of millions of people, 50 million are women. Among them there are about 10 million women aged 16 to 26. Among them there are 1 in 10,000 beauties. And in the 3,000 planes, there are 3 million beauties who are 1 in 10,000. 3 million. Just imagine. Lin Muyu was a little stunned. Damn, just imagining it makes me so excited. That's right. Big brother didn't mistreat you, right, weak chicken? No, not bad, ha. At this time Xiao and Qinin shouted in different directions. Demon Emperor. Big brother you. Instantly the 2 men who were living in a dream woke up. Xiao said lightly, It's better to go to the ancient divine realm as soon as possible. Otherwise, these 2 people will have trouble staying together. Qinin nodded approvingly. And I agree. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor turned around and smiled. Sister-in-law Xiaoyin, listen to my explanation. Don't explain, it's too weak. Don't be angry. How can you and I be that kind of people? At the side, Sun Feng said respectfully, Demon Emperor, the carefully selected 50 young goddesses from the southern border have been sent to the main hall. Demon Emperor. Xiao's eyes were burning. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor coughed and said, Men, send these goddesses back. It's just a misunderstanding. Where's the clerk? Remove Sun Feng from his position as the marshal and confiscate his seal. Sun Feng was at a loss. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were afraid that if they stayed in East Heaven for another day, Lin Muyu would be led astray. Therefore they decided to leave the Heaven Realm the next day and go to the ancient Wild Secret Realm to train. That night, the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor held a banquet to entertain the newly promoted gods of East Heaven Realm. Lin Muyu had the sovereign personality, Qin Yin had the main god personality, Tang Xiaoxi was a demon god, and Xian was a blazing angel. None of them could be compared to ordinary gods. The arrival of the four of them was not only good friends who had not met for a long time, but also greatly enriched the power of East Heaven Realm. In addition to Lin Muyu being appointed as the marshal of the left army, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were also rewarded with hundreds of planes each. Xian refused the reward, so it was fine. The next morning she woke up early. This was Lin Muyu's first morning in the divine world. Stretching her arms, she walked out of the simple and unadorned palace. In the distance, the rising sun broke through the vault of heaven. Colorful lights and clouds rose into the sky. The beautiful scenery was breathtaking. The heaven realm was the heaven realm after all. Even the scenery was not comparable to the mortal world. Chapter 976. The East Emperor Palace was the most majestic building in the Eastern Heaven Realm. The entire East Emperor Palace stretched for more than 30 miles and was the residence of the Eastern God Kings. After the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor ruled the Eastern Heaven, the entire East Emperor Palace was almost in ruins. The War of the Gods turned the towering palaces into rubble. Only less than a quarter of the East Emperor Palace was preserved. However, the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor did not live in it. Instead, he conferred it to Xiao as a bedchamber. In the imperial garden behind the East Emperor Palace, the warm morning sun shone on the jungle. There were not many gods who came to send off Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and the others. There were only the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, Xiao, Sun Feng, and a few other important figures in the Eastern Heaven Realm. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, dressed in a light purple robe, said in a low voice, You must be careful when you go there. The world in the space crack is called the Wild Land of the Divine Realm by us. It is also called the Secret Land of the Divine Realm. For tens of thousands of years, it has been regarded as a forbidden area in the Divine Realm. There are great dangers lurking in the Secret Land of the Divine Realm. Even Xiao has only explored less than 1/10 of the area. You must be extra careful. Will there be fatal threats? Lin Muyu asked. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor answered directly, Yes, one careless mistake and you may never come back. I originally planned to let Xiao accompany you there, but Xiao thinks that this will be an obstacle to your training. Real breakthroughs and improvements in strength are between life and death. How far you can cultivate in the secret land of the divine realm is entirely up to you. In addition, there is one more thing I want to tell you. Say it, big brother. There are many lost treasures in the secret land of the divine realm. Even divine weapons like the Xianyuan sword and Pangu axe were found in the secret land of the divine realm. The 4 of you may be able to find what you want in the secret land. In short, be careful. Qin Yin's eyes were faint as she said, Sister Xiao has entered the secret land. Can you tell us something about it? Perhaps this will give us more confidence. Xiao nodded. Even though I've only explored a small part of the wild god realm, I still have some understanding of it. First of all, you need to be wary of the forgotten ones in the secret realm. The Forsaken One. That's right. Xiao nodded and said, that was a group of ancient gods. They were originally under the rule of God Emperor Fuxi. However, in a war many years ago, these ancient gods were left behind in the Arcana realm. They never found their way back, so they survived in the Arcana realm. Their names gradually disappeared from the divine book of the Eastern God realm and became a group of forgotten fierce gods. Be careful of them. For tens of thousands of years, they have survived by killing each other and stealing godheads. Lin Muyu nodded and said, Yes, I remember. What else? Beware of the night marauders. Raiders. Yes, they are a group of strange beasts similar to ancient demonic beasts. There are countless of them and they are very strong. They can break through the walls of the god realm. They only appear at night, some can fly while others can't. They are extremely fast and even gods can't see them with their naked eyes. In ancient times they were called sky huts. Their bodies are black and their arms and mouths have sharp blades that can pierce through the walls of the god realm. You must be careful. Let me give you a piece of advice. In the god realm, don't come out at night. Find a cave to hide in. Sister Xiao, you've also encountered these sky huts. Tang Xiaoxi asked. Yes, I hid in a cave in a snowy region for a day and a night before I managed to escape. There were over 10,000 sky huts hunting me down. It was impossible to kill them all. Xiao smiled and said, Once you enter the Arcana realm, don't think of yourself as a god. The creatures that can survive in the ancient Arcana realm are all stronger than gods. What's so good about the Arcana realm? Lin Muyu asked. Xiao smiled. The spirit energy density in the Arcana realm is 11 times that of the Heaven realm and 50 times that of the Broken Cauldron realm. Cultivating in the Arcana realm will yield twice the results with half the effort. Moreover, the gravity in the Arcana realm is 7 times that of the Broken Cauldron realm. In other words, you will have to endure 7 times the weight of your body. This will greatly increase your speed. As she spoke, Xiao continued, there is another special feature of the Arcana realm. Food is scarce. Most of the food you can find is spirit fruits and strange beasts. However, these two are treasures condensed from the essence of heaven and earth. After eating them, your cultivation will greatly increase. Also, be careful of wind saws when flying in the Arcana realm. Wind saws? Lin Muyu was stunned. Yes, it's a type of wind condensed from dimensional energy. You must avoid it if you encounter it. The power of the wind saws is extremely strong and can break through the walls of the God realm. Moreover, the wind saws are invisible and invisible. You can't rely on your eyes. You can only rely on your spirit sense to sense the fluctuations of the dimensional energy. Got it. Lin Muyu smiled and said, all right, is there anything else you want to say? If not, let's prepare to set off. We have to set off as soon as possible and return as soon as possible. Yes. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi nodded together. There were still a lot of things waiting to be done in the Broken Cauldron realm. If they could step into the God Emperor realm earlier and return, it would be time to take control of the overall situation. Xiao didn't say anything. She just spread her hands and condensed a huge northern heavenly wheel. The sparkling and translucent ruler slid continuously. If you're ready, I'll send you over. Xiao smiled faintly. Don't be anxious. Cultivate slowly. 10 years inside is equivalent to 1 year in the Broken Cauldron realm and the God realm. However, you must be careful. After entering the Arcana realm, you will appear in the sky. Remember, you must be careful of those invisible wind saws. I almost lost my life to them. Yes. Lin Muyu held Tang Xiaoxi's and Qin Yin's hands and stood in the open woodland filled with grass. Qin Yin held onto Xian's arm. The few of them were already prepared. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor said in a deep voice. You must cultivate carefully and come back alive. Swoosh 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 swoosh. 4 beams of light soared into the sky and disappeared into the forest. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor couldn't help but turn around and stare at Xiao. You didn't even let me finish speaking before sending them off. How rude. The corner of Xiao's mouth rose slightly. I still can't completely control the power of the northern heavenly wheel. Also, were you yelling at me just now? I was just asking. Swoosh swoosh, flowing light shuttles appeared on both sides. The 4 of them traveled through the flowing light tunnel as soon as their feet touched the ground. Under the impact of the powerful energy, everyone couldn't help but close their eyes and couldn't look at it anymore. Only Qin Yin could maintain her eyes of blazing light open, but it was also very difficult. After traveling for a full 10 minutes, it was obvious how far the secret territory was. Hua! Suddenly, the 4 of them appeared in the sky as if they had passed through a wall. The sky was already blue with white clouds. It was a peaceful scene, and the soles of their feet automatically generated energy to support their flight. Lin Muyu opened her eyes and looked down at the ground. This was a dense forest area. There were mountains in the distance and it felt like they were facing a stone forest. However, the stone forest in front of them was hundreds of times larger. Stone pillars soared into the sky, as if they were the giants that supported the power between heaven and earth. Roars of wild beasts could be heard in the forest. From the sound, one could tell that they weren't kind. We have just arrived, so we can't stay in the air for too long. After we land, let's familiarize ourselves with the terrain first, Lin Muyu said softly. The 3 beauties nodded together. Unknowingly, Lin Muyu had already taken on the role of the team leader of this secret territory cultivation team. Moreover, the purpose of this trip was very clear, and that was to improve their cultivation. It would be best if they could reach the great perfection divine the Arch realm. By then they could return to the Shattered Cauldron realm and dominate the world. Behind them, a huge black bird followed at a distance. When it spread its wings, it was about 5 meters long. Its pair of black eyes were filled with the greed and ruthlessness of a predator. Is it a rock? Tang Xiaoxi asked suspiciously. Will it attack us? Probably not. Lin Muyu said. It is also testing our strength. Obviously, this rock strength isn't enough to kill the four of us at once. Let's fly down first. Qin Yin hugged Xian and supported her strength. The four of them slowly flew down. However, halfway through the flight, Lin Muyu's spiritual sense suddenly sensed a power fluctuation in the air, followed by an almost imperceptible dimensional explosion. He hurriedly said softly, "Be careful, it's a wind saw. Move with me." He suddenly raised his palm and pulled Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi and Xian up by nearly 3 meters. With a swoosh, the wind saw swept past, and the image of a huge blood-red blade appeared. It was 100 meters long, just like a huge saw. It suddenly appeared and disappeared. No wonder it was called wind saw. The rock behind him let out a loud squawk. It flapped its wings and spun rapidly in the air, barely dodging the giant wind saw's natural attack. This rock had lived for at least 10,000 years. As a survivor of the arcane realm, its defense against the wind saw was probably far above that of Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and the others. Tang Xiaoxi looked back and was secretly shocked. As expected, they are not simple. Careful, there is another one. Lin Muyu used her falling star step again and brought the 3 girls along with her for almost 10 meters. Their original position in the air had been completely separated by a wind saw. Xian couldn't help but smile. This place is interesting. She doesn't have any cultivation, but she is so calm in the face of danger. This is probably the power of the mind. Lin Muyu quickly brought everyone to the ground. It was extremely dangerous in the air. If it wasn't for the fact that she had cultivated the spiritual pulse technique and was extremely sensitive to energy fluctuations, it would have been very difficult for her to dodge the 2 consecutive wind saws. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Only after his feet touched the ground did he feel a sense of security. The forest was filled with trees that he couldn't name. Some of the trees were grotesquely shaped and comical. Not far away there was a tree that was only half a meter tall. Its shape was rather inelegant. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi also noticed it. "Xiaoyin, look at that tree, it looks like..." Tang Xiaoxi suddenly stopped. Qin Yin giggled, but she was too embarrassed to say anything. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, took a careful look and said, "It looks like a butt, right?" "Yeah." Lin Muyu walked up and looked at it. She said, "What's even stranger is that there is a small red fruit in the center of the butt. Looks like a small strawberry. What is this?" "Sister Xian, you are very knowledgeable. Come take a look." Xian walked up and carefully observed the fruit growing from the butt tree. Her eyes suddenly lit up. "How is this a strawberry? This is a very rare spirit fruit." Chapter 977. Spirit Fruit. Lin Muyu smiled. "The fruit from this butt tree is definitely not delicious." "Is that so?" Xian was speechless. "Then what if I told you that this isn't a butt tree but a peacefulness tree, and this spirit fruit is called a peacefulness berry? Eating one can increase your spirit energy for a month. Would you still think this fruit is not delicious?" A month. Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Qin Yin giggled. That's great, that's great. In other words, eating this fruit will speed up your cultivation, right, Sister Hyan?" "That's about right, but you can't eat too much. You can only eat one a day at most. Otherwise it's useless." Lin Muyu was excited. She counted and said, "There are about 20 peacefulness berries on this peacefulness tree. It's enough for the 4 of us to eat for a week. I'll pick it." "Wait." Xian hurriedly called out and said, "Idiot you, this kind of peacefulness berry can't be picked normally. Once the fruit is separated from the branches and leaves, it will lose all its spirit energy in a few seconds. The way to pick this spirit fruit is to cut off the bark together. When you need to eat it, you just need to bite off one and eat it." So particular. Lin Muyu carefully pulled out a little demonic noise knife from her waist and peeled off the bark along with a peacefulness berry. Then she handed it to Qin Yin. "Here, Xiaoyin, eat one first." Qin Yin was a little uneasy. "Should I eat first?" Xian and Tang Xiaoxi both smiled. "Eat, eat." Xian added, "Each of us will take one, and at this time tomorrow we will take another one. In this way we can maintain our physical strength and divine power." Qin Yin gently bit a peacefulness berry and couldn't help but frown. She smiled. "It's so sour." When Xian and Tang Xiaoxi each ate one, Lin Muyu also leaned close to the bark and chewed one. Sure enough, it was very sour, but the moment it entered her throat, there was a refreshing taste. When it fell into her stomach, the spiritual power in the peacefulness berry began to volatilize. and spiritual power gushed into her meridians like a spring. It was really a good treasure. This kind of peacefulness berry could increase one's cultivation and also increase the recovery speed of the consumer's divine power. It was even better than what Xian said. Lin Muyu carefully hid the rest of the Ningxin berries in her Qinkuan pouch, then pulled out her Xianyuan sword and started digging around the butt tree. What are you doing? Xian was shocked. Lin Muyu said, I'm digging it up and transplanting it. This peacefulness berry is so good. If we dig it up and bring it back to Shattered Cauldron Realm or God Realm, we can mass produce it after planting it. How great would that be? Black lines appeared on Xian's forehead. You should change your upstart mindset. Let me tell you bluntly, the peacefulness berry needs to bloom and bear fruit in a place with very strong spiritual power. Moreover, it only blooms once in 100 years and bears fruit in another 100 years. After we pick the fruit this time, it will take 200 years before it bears fruit again. Can you wait 200 years? I don't think so. Lin Muyu gave up on the idea of transplanting it and said, let's search a bit more, maybe there are other spirit fruits. Xian burst into laughter. You're thinking too much. We're lucky to have encountered this peacefulness berry. Although there are spirit fruits in the secret realm, they're not planted. They're crystallized from the spirit energy of heaven and earth. Moreover, most of the spirit fruits have already been eaten by wild beasts or cultivators here. We wouldn't be that lucky. Lin Muyu had already walked dozens of steps forward. She pointed at a big tree in front of them and said, Sister Xian, look, is that thing that looks like a banana a spirit fruit? Xian was stunned. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? This is a devil palm banana. Lin Muyu chuckled. I've only heard of the devil palm banana. I've never heard of the devil palm banana. Xian said, the devil palm banana is a kind of natural spirit fruit of the law of fire. After eating it, it can greatly increase the consumer's control and endurance of the law of fire. Even if a mortal eats it, it can also greatly increase their resistance and endurance of the law of fire. Therefore, in the mortal realm, there are some mortals in some planes who eat the devil palm banana by mistake. They're not natural espers, but they've received the benefits of the devil palm banana. As long as they cultivate well, even eating a devil palm banana can be considered a pretty good cultivator of the law of fire. Is that powerful? Lin Muyu was stunned. Xian nodded. I remember there's a plane under the control of the Western Divine Realm. There, the price of a devil palm banana has already been raised to 300 trox. Only 300? That's not much. Lin Muyu said. Xian was speechless. In that plane, 1 trox can buy a 3-story courtyard, plus 10 maids and 3 big-tailed dogs. What do you think? Lin Muyu's heart surged. So we're rich? Rich your head. Qin Yin couldn't help but laugh. These devil palm bananas are all for Xiaoxi. Maybe they can help Xiaoxi evolve her divine spark into the overgod spark. Compared to the wealth of the mortal world, Xiaoxi's overgod spark is more important. Xian raised the corner of her mouth and said, if she really refines the overgod spark, then she can be considered as a ruler. Don't tell me you've never thought of unifying the heaven realm? This heaven realm is divided into 4 major star fields. There are years of war and chaos and it's long been exhausted. If we can unify it and there are no wars, that would be great. Lin Muyu pondered for a moment and asked, Sister Xian thinks we have the ability to unify the heaven realm. Why not? Xian giggled and said, don't forget your divine spark is the same as the 7 luminaries demon emperor. It is also a sovereign spark. Moreover, you are still advancing so quickly with the sovereign spark. This means that your talent is above that of the demon emperor. As long as you are willing, your future achievements will definitely be above that of the demon emperor. If the demon emperor can unify the East Heaven, then you can unify the entire heaven realm and become a true king of gods. Lin Muyu smiled brightly and suddenly held Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's hands, saying, I don't want to be some king of gods. I want to bring my 2 beautiful wives home and show them to my father. Then I will spend a lot of money to open a world-class bar and bring Xiao Yin and Xiaoxi to drink every day for fun. Then the company will hire a dozen god emperors as bodyguards. If anyone dares to cause trouble for me, Xiao Yin and Xiaoxi, I will let these god emperors beat them up until they can't take care of themselves. Is this what you want? Xian looked at him with her mouth wide open. On the other hand, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were so happy they could die. Actually, what women wanted was very simple. As long as the person they loved was by their side and they were in their heart, that was enough. Xian squinted her beautiful eyes. It would be great if that was the case. Can you guarantee that when you meet a more beautiful woman in the future, you will always be loyal to Xin and Xiaoxi? Lin Mu shook her head. No, I don't believe that there is anyone more righteous than Xiao Yin and Xiaoxi in this world. What if there is? Then I will capture them and present them to Big Brother Feng Jixing. As a sister-in-law, she won't have any other thoughts. Yo. Xian walked over with a smile, her tall and slender body sticking to Lin Muyu's shoulder. She looked at him deeply and said, "Isn't there a saying in your hometown, nothing is better than dumplings, nothing is better than playing with dumplings?" Lin Muyu's face turned pale. You know too much. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi asked, "What's more fun?" Lin Muyu didn't know how to answer, so she turned around to pick the devil's palm banana. After peeling one, she handed it to Tang Xiaoxi's mouth. "Xiaoxi, come, eat the banana." Tang Xiaoxi didn't know what to do, so she opened her mouth blankly and took a bite. Lin Muyu's face turned red. Qin Yin looked at him speechlessly. She had no idea what he was thinking. About 50 meters ahead, there was another tree in front of them, and this time there were more than 40 fruits. This was really a little shocking. Happiness came too suddenly. After Lin Muyu cut the spiritual fruit, Xian raised her hand and said, Let's get out of here quickly. Why, there are so many spiritual fruits. You idiot, so many spiritual fruits live so densely together, but there isn't even a beast that eats them. What does this mean? Have you forgotten the 2 consecutive wind saws we took in the air? This means that we are in the plantation of some powerhouse. These spiritual fruits are grown by him, and the 2 wind saws are obstacles he set up in the sky with some method. Xian suddenly became nervous and said, to be able to grow so many spiritual fruits in the primordial mystic realm, he must have eaten spiritual fruits for tens of thousands of years. His cultivation must be at least 90 grotto heaven great perfection immortal state. Let's go. If we're discovered, we'll definitely die. So we've become thieves? Lin Muyu put away the spiritual fruits and said, then let's go. With that, she held Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's hands and hurried away. If Xian's cultivation was still there, then it wouldn't be a problem. She could eat all their fruits, burn down their spiritual orchard, and do all sorts of evil things. But Xian didn't have any cultivation, so they could only rely on Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi to fight. Any 90 grotto heaven god emperor would be hard to deal with, so it was better to escape. However, after the 4 of them ran for nearly 10 li, Xian was still frowning and said anxiously, I keep feeling like something is following us. That's right, something is following us. Lin Muyu pointed in the direction of the spiritual orchard and said, look, that thing is following us. Sure enough, a grayish-red figure came out of the forest. It was a hungry wolf, but it wasn't an ordinary wolf. It was a wolf with the power of the god state. Its head was densely covered with golden lines, and there were at least 30 of them. Lin Muyu's scalp went numb. This is bad. This is a beast that has lived for at least 30,000 years. Even the saliva that flows from its mouth is the saliva of the gods. Qin Yin squinted her eyes and smiled. Big brother, that's enough. Be serious, we don't know how to deal with this wolf. Xian said, this wolf should be a pet of the owner of the spiritual orchard. It's not a good one. We can't hide from it, the only way is to kill it. A 30,000-year-old spiritual beast's meat must be delicious. We just happen to have no food and it's getting dark. Lin Muyu slowly unsheathed the Shenyuan sword and said, leave it to me. Oh. Xian shook her head. Actually, with your strength and the divine weapon, you are already the strongest among the 4 of us. Let Xin take care of this wolf, and you can't use the flaming eyes. Kill it with the 7 slashes. Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. Let Xiao Yin do it alone? Yes. Xian smiled and nodded. Did you forget the purpose of our trip? If Xin can't take care of a beast by himself, how can he improve in the future? Yes, I'll go. Qin Yin smiled and unsheathed the star's sword. Chapter 978. The secret realm was full of divine beasts. Although this wolf looked ferocious and ugly, it belonged to the ranks of divine beasts. In terms of strength, ordinary ultimate gods and divine kings might not be its match at all. Since it was the pet of the owner of the spiritual orchard, most of its food must be treasures such as spiritual fruits. At that moment, the holy wolf's body was enshrouded in flames as it slowly walked over. It had already discovered that the few people standing on the hill were the thieves who stole the spiritual fruits. Roar. It raised its head and roared. The grassland around the holy wolf was quickly swept by a shockwave as a flame divine power rippled out. Sure enough, the power of a divine beast was extraordinary. Perhaps it would be better for Xiaoyin to use the eyes of blazing light, said Lin Muyu. Xian shook her head. No, using the eyes of blazing light to deal with such an opponent would make the eyes of blazing light too cheap. Xingo. If you can't beat it, you and Xiaoxi will save you. Qin Yin floated down with a long sword in her hand and confronted the holy wolf 10 meters away. Her flowing cloud dress fluttered in the wind. She was indescribably beautiful. She kept her eyes closed as she used her spiritual sense to capture the holy wolf's position and attack angle. Clap. The holy wolf's front paws slowly scratched the ground as a pair of red eyes stared at the delicious meal in front of it. Suddenly, it launched an attack as its figure attacked like lightning. On the hill, Xian said, dripping stone, grasping wind and catching shadow, lower your center of gravity, split, stab. Qin Yin's body suddenly took a few steps back as her long sword turned into a series of light shadows and instantly split apart. She was almost kneeling on the ground while maintaining her center of gravity. At the same time, her long sword stabbed out. Suddenly, the sky was filled with phantom-like blades of the stellar sword. Roar. The holy wolf waved its claws in the air as it crazily scratched and bit. Each claw turned into divine power and bombarded the splitting sword. In the blink of an eye, the holy wolf smashed countless sword shadows. Its sharp claws raised high and fell on Qin Yin's fragrant shoulder. Such powerful divine power. Lin Muyu sighed inwardly. Tang Xiaoxi's eyes widened. Be careful, Xiaoyin. Shi Yan whispered. Disperse the light, dodge. Light splitting was one of the battle techniques of the law of light in the Western divine realm. Every participant in the Chosen of God trial had trained in it. Qin Yin's figure seemed to be standing in the same place, but in the next moment, a figure separated and appeared several meters away. The holy wolf's sharp claws only killed a temporary illusion that Qin Yin left in the same place. In the air, gather power, judge. Shi Yan continued. Almost as soon as she finished speaking, Qin Yin's delicate body had already risen from the ground. Her long sword was high up in the air, radiating a dazzling radiance. The sword light expanded by dozens of meters, and it slashed heavily at the back of the holy wolf, who had missed its target. Awoo! The holy wolf seemed to be aware of the approaching crisis. It roared and all the hair on its back stood up, like steel needles forming a shield-like defense. With a clang, it collided with the power of judgment. Suddenly, Qin Yin's arm felt a vast rebound force, and she was involuntarily sent flying. The holy wolf also whimpered and took several steps back. Roar. A stream of blood flowed down from its back, but to a wild beast, this kind of injury could stimulate its bloodthirsty nature even more. Its sharp claws scratched the ground, causing the ground to tremble and show signs of splitting apart. Cracks appeared on the grass, and not only that, flames rose into the sky along with its movements. It's going to get serious, Lin Muyu said. Qin Yin frowned slightly. Sister Haiyan, I won't hide it from you. The third strike of the 7 slashes is too destructive, and I haven't fully mastered it. Once I use it, not only will my opponent die but I will also suffer from the power backlash. Just give it a try. Qin Yin gripped the long sword with both hands as her body trembled slightly. She quickly poured her energy into the blade, and the pure light divine energy from her overgod's spark caused the star's sword to hum. The light saint energy continued to gather, and in the end, it formed a scorching white flame around the blade. This was the purest form of light energy, white flame. The holy wolf rushed forward, waved its claws and attacked Qin Yin with a shocking momentum. The moment Qin Yin raised her hand, the white flame had already swept out, turning the surrounding grass into ashes. The biting cold sword light slashed down on the wolf's head. Bang! The saint wolf howled miserably. Part of its skull seemed to have been shattered, and its flesh and blood splattered everywhere. However, it still waved its sharp claws and scratched at Qin Yin's shoulders and chest, leaving traces of flames. Very soon, cracks appeared on Qin Yin's divine wall. The flames swept in, and the delicate skin on her shoulders was evaporated, revealing her alluring snow-white shoulders, as well as many frightening traces. The power of destruction was too strong, and it continued to sweep out, almost disintegrating the holy wolf's body. At the same time, the white flame began to withdraw, which would also cause a strong backlash to Qin Yin's body. The fourth strike, pity! Xian shouted. But I haven't mastered the fourth strike. Qin Yin was shocked. I told you to use it, so use it, don't hesitate. Qin Yin immediately shouted, gathering all the strength in her body and retracted the blade. Suddenly, a gentle force surged around and Qin Yin stood there proudly like a war goddess at the end of the world. A magical scene happened. The surrounding grassland that was originally burned to ashes quickly sprouted green, and even the injury on Qin Yin's shoulder began to recover. What was even more exaggerated was that the holy wolf's body that had been disintegrated also recovered by half. Although it couldn't be resurrected, it seemed as if time had been reversed. At this moment, the domain filled the entire space and no one could attack Qin Yin at all, as if they were controlled by some kind of law. The fourth strike of Xian's 7 chops was not the main attack, but a defensive move. I did it. Qin Yin opened her flaming eyes, and looked back at the 3 people on the hill in surprise. Xian smiled in satisfaction and nodded. I think during the Chosen One trial, Li Fei already taught you that the true power of light is a kind of destruction and mortals can't peek at it. But she definitely didn't teach you that light is also a kind of rebirth, a kind of power that can resist all things. The third strike of Xian's 7 chops, destruction, and the fourth strike, pity, were originally the same move, but I separated them. The fourth strike is the end of the third strike, and is also a perfect defensive method for self-protection. As she said this, Xian said softly, in the Gods' War 3 months ago, I relied on this move to avoid the fatal attack of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. If it wasn't for pity, I'm afraid I would have been turned into ashes by now. Qin Yin smiled lightly. Thank you, Sister Haiyan, for your teachings. I finally mastered the third and fourth strikes perfectly. Is this the purpose of our trip? Then. Lin Muyu stared at the Saint Wolf's corpse. Then tonight's dinner has appeared. Wolf meat, how about it? Since he had already killed it, eating the Saint Wolf shouldn't be a problem. Furthermore, he hadn't seen a single wild rabbit, deer, or wild boar after running for 5 kilometers. It looked like it was just as Ziyao had said. Food was the most difficult problem to solve in the primordial dungeon. It was rare that he had been lucky enough to kill the Saint Wolf. He couldn't let it go to waste. Lin Muyu jumped down the hill and grabbed the Saint Wolf's corpse. First, she pulled out a small magic noise blade and dug out a spirit stone. Sure enough, just like the one in the Shattered Cauldron realm, this Saint Wolf had nurtured a spirit stone that was over 32,000 years old. It was a good thing, and after refining it, it could increase one's cultivation by quite a bit. Xian looked into the distance. Let's go, we can't wait for the owner of the spirit orchard to find us. That'll be troublesome. Can any of you tell the direction? I can. Lin Muyu touched the communication device Lulu gave her and called out from afar. Lulu, are you still there? A barely audible voice came into her ear. I'm here, big brother. Why did you run to such a remote space? Your signal? I can barely catch it. Then don't say too much. Help me confirm the direction. Straight ahead of you is north. Thank you, Lulu. Lin Muyu pointed ahead. North. Xian said happily, that's for the best. Xiao also said that this is the north of the god realm. So let's continue north and try to avoid the owner of the spirit orchard. In the dense forest, the 4 of them ran as if they were flying, but just as Xian said, they didn't encounter any trees with spirit fruits along the way, but they did see a fierce tiger and a python along the way. They were strong, but they didn't provoke them in order to hurry. By dusk, they had already run for nearly 100 miles and the sky was about to turn dark. Lin Muyu was more concerned about letting Xian circulate her mental cultivation method in such an environment with such abundant spirit energy. Rushing all the way wasn't effective, and the gravity in the secret realm was 7 times that of Shattered Cauldron realm. Running for 50 miles was almost Xian's limit. Lin Muyu glanced over and sure enough, Xian's forehead was covered in sweat. A great blazing angel couldn't even withstand such intense running. In order to destroy the divine agreement, Xian had paid too much. Find a place to stay at night? Lin Muyu said. Qin Yin was the first to agree, and she also noticed that Xian's breathing was getting heavier. In the dense forest, a triangular cave entrance was faintly discernible. When Lin Muyu used her long sword to cut the thorns, the entire shape of the cave appeared. This location was not bad and there were towering trees around it. Even if they started a fire here, it wouldn't be easy to be discovered. The mountain is high and we can look down from above. The cave is low and it's not easy to find. Even if we are seen, we can escape at any time, and we don't have to be afraid of being surrounded. The terrain is easy to defend and hard to attack, Lin Muyu said confidently. Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. Big brother, we're not in a war now, so you can put that away. I can't help it, it's an occupational hazard. You guys clean up the cave, I'll go find a water source. Chapter 979. The nearest water source to the cave was not far away. There was a gurgling stream a mile away. Night had officially fallen. Only the flapping of the wings of birds returning to their nests and the hissing of some small poisonous snakes crawling among the branches and leaves in search of food could be heard. Lin Muyu did not fly. He carried the body of the holy wolf on his shoulder and walked step by step under the giant trees in the jungle with the Xianyuan sword in one hand. Rustle. The sound of the leaves rustling in the branches in the distance also attracted his attention. As a professional soldier who had fought in wars for more than 10 years, Lin Muyu's vigilance was not comparable to that of ordinary practitioners. He suddenly stopped and stood in the jungle like a silent statue. He did not continue until the spiritual pulse technique confirmed that there was no unusual movement. When he came to the stream, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. It was a very big stream, at least 2 meters deep, and the water was so clear that he could see the bottom. There were no animals drinking on either side, causing the lush forest to be filled with a deathly stillness. He squatted down and skinned the holy wolf's corpse. He didn't waste a single bit and kept all of the meat because he didn't know what to eat next after eating this. After sorting out the entire wolf's meat, he began to fetch water. The water bag he used to fetch water was a reserve water bag made from the skin of a giant beast. It was bulging and filled to the brim, equivalent to at least 3 large buckets of water. When Lin Muyu put down the water bag complacently and was about to clean up the wolf's meat, suddenly there was a strange ripple in the water. He slowly put down the wolf's meat and raised his hand to pull out the Xianyuan sword. He looked at the water like a torch. There was indeed something strange just now. The ripple did not seem to be caused by something on the water surface, and there were no fish in the stream at all. The ripple just now came from the bottom of the water. The ripple formed by the stream hitting the pebbles at the bottom of the water was very regular, completely different from the ripple just now. Taking a deep breath, Lin Muyu raised the Xianyuan sword with one hand and suddenly opened his left hand. He shouted in a low voice, "All phenomena of heaven and earth, listen to my command. Rise." Splash. Under the control of the invisible elephant spell, the stream rose rapidly and a voice came from the water, "You're courting death." Sure enough, there was someone in the seemingly transparent stream. Oh, it should be a god. Whoosh. A transparent figure dashed out of the stream with a curtain of water droplets. It was a completely transparent person hidden in the water. He raised his palm and condensed a dazzling ice crystal blade. He slashed at Lin Muyu's neck at an astonishing speed. His moves were ruthless and ruthless, completely aiming to take his opponent's life. Lin Muyu instantly understood that the person in front of her did not come with good intentions. Her body quickly leaned back and in an instant she completed a beautiful iron bridge. Under the condition of avoiding the opponent's attack, her combat boots, which were imbued with supreme divine power, violently kicked upwards. With a ping sound, countless splashes were scattered, but at the same time, this invisible killer was kicked out of the range of the water. Shoo! The opponent slid a few meters away along the grass and rocks. With a shake of his arm, the heat evaporated and in the blink of an eye, the water on his body evaporated. After the water evaporated, he became transparent again and could no longer be captured by Lin Muyu's naked eyes. Moreover, his control of aura was exquisite. Even if Lin Muyu could capture his aura, she would not be able to launch an attack based on the location of the aura. After all, with just the aura but not the image of the opponent, it was impossible to predict the attack and the angle of the attack. In for a penny, in for a pound. Lin Muyu quickly took a few steps back, raised her palm and shouted, "The invisible elephant, borrow the momentum." Boom. The forest within dozens of meters was instantly crushed into powder, but it seemed like the opponent had dodged this attack. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. When she kicked the opponent's ankle just now, she could feel the continuous waves of divine power. This person had more than 70 waves of divine power, which meant that he was a rather powerful emperor god. Moreover, he could hide his body, which made it even more difficult to deal with. Making a prompt decision, Lin Muyu raised her arms and shouted, "Acatosaurus, turn into armor." The Acatosaurus in the alternate dimension appeared quickly and turned into pieces of blood-red lotus armor that attached to the owner's body, forming a very close-fitting armor. Moreover, it was connected to the owner's bloodline and had great defensive power. Buzz! A hurricane came from behind her, and Lin Muyu quickly turned around and raised the dragon blood shield. After a pause sound, the dragon blood shield only trembled slightly. Not good. Lin Muyu cursed in her heart. She had been tricked. At this moment, a cold wind came from the left. It was a palm condensed with icicles, and it blasted towards Lin Muyu's left shoulder like a sharp sword. Peng! A muffled sound rang out. This hit landed squarely on the divine wall. The light from the divine wall splattered all over the ground. Another hit would probably shatter Lin Muyu's divine wall. The situation was very unfavorable, and Lin Muyu felt a chill in her heart. Although this person only had 70 grotto heavens, the ancient experts in the prehistoric mystic realm were indeed very strong. This 70th grotto heaven was not any weaker than Bailey Qin's 87th grotto heaven emperor god, and might even be stronger. The sharp ice law divine power was bone-chilling, and it had already caused Lin Muyu's left arm to feel a little numb. After the attack, the opponent disappeared again, and all Lin Muyu could do was to control the invisible elephant art. Suddenly, her battle boots landed on the ground, and the flames turned into a shockwave that spread to the surroundings. Shwa! Within the flames, a figure appeared, and it was him. Without a word, Lin Muyu raised the Xianyuan sword and locked onto the opponent with her domain. The invisible elephant art borrowed the momentum of the mountains to descend from the sky, and the 5 elements 8 wastelands annihilation landed on the opponent's head. Hong! The raging flames expanded, and Lin Muyu's attack caught the opponent off guard. In addition to the Xianyuan sword's overwhelming righteousness and sharpness, it directly sliced through the opponent's god wall. With a poochie sound, the blade slashed across his chest and a wound was formed. Fresh blood splattered, and the opponent was already heavily injured. He could only blame himself for underestimating his opponent, and he didn't expect Lin Muyu's weapon to be so powerful. Since he was bleeding, he wouldn't be able to hide anymore, and the blood would betray his tracks. His figure slowly appeared, and a hideous face appeared. He looked at the sword in Lin Muyu's hand in shock and said, "Where did your weapon come from?" Lin Muyu didn't say anything, and she waved her sword horizontally. 6 element heavenly tribulation. Chatting during a battle wasn't a good habit, and chatting after crippling the enemy was the quality of a true expert. But this 70th level grotto heaven powerhouse clearly wasn't that easy to cripple. Ice and snow fluttered in the air, and an expert with the law of ice was always very difficult to deal with. Fortunately, the law of fire was one of the laws that Lin Muyu mainly cultivated, and the intensity of the flames was comparable to the divine power of the overgod of fire, and it was enough to deal with this level of law of ice. Thus, in a short period of 3 minutes, the two sides exchanged dozens of attacks, and in the end, the injured powerhouse finally couldn't resist Lin Muyu's crazy attacks and was defeated, and he fell into a broken patch of thorns, and his breath was more out than in. Sha. Qin Yin, Xian and Tang Xiaoxi also appeared at the edge of the stream, but they didn't participate in the battle. They all knew that this was Lin Muyu's battle and also his cultivation. "Who are you?" Lin Muyu carried the Xianyuan sword, walked forward and asked with a cold face, "Why do you want to kill me?" The ugly man's face was pale and he said, "You stole the spirit fruit from the holy orchard and killed the domain lord's holy wolf. As the domain lord's friend, I naturally want to kill you, but you stole someone else's spirit fruit and killed the holy wolf guardian. You deserve to die." "Domain lord? Who is he? Is someone like you worthy to ask the domain lord's name?" As he spoke, the ugly man suddenly raised his arm, and his entire arm was quickly covered in icicles, and it shot towards Lin Muyu's chest with lightning speed. Lin Muyu's movements were very light, and with a raise of his hand the sword flew out and the man's head flew off. A piece of divine spark with ice lingering around it slowly condensed above the head. "Seems like we've gotten into big trouble," he said unhurriedly. Domain Lord, I wonder who he is. Xian frowned and said, but we've indeed gotten into big trouble. What do you think of this person's strength? Very strong. Lin Muyu looked at the opponent's corpse and said, if I hadn't underestimated the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword and had my divine wall broken, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to determine the victor within 100 moves. What do we do now? Go back to the cave and eat and drink to your heart's content. Who wants this divine spark? You keep it, none of us cultivate the law of ice. Tang Xiaoxi smiled. Lin Muyu grabbed the divine spark and threw it into her Qingkuan bag, then picked up the half-burnt wolf head and returned to the cave with the water bag. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi began to cultivate their own mental cultivation methods, and sat cross-legged in the cave without moving. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu began to refine the ugly man's divine spark, and transferred the divine power to Xian. Xian's body was empty, and needed this external divine power to refine and make it her own. This person's body is transparent. Lin Muyu recalled the previous battle. Xian said, it's the law of dark light, a branch of the law of light. Cultivators of the law of dark light can use the power of illusory light to make their bodies transparent. These people are very difficult to deal with unless you can kill them in one strike. I was almost injured. Lin Muyu looked up at Xian, who was bathed in holy light, and said, Sister Xian, why aren't you absorbing divine power anymore? I'm full. Xian frowned slightly and said, this is the limit of what I can refine today. You can absorb the rest yourself. Lin Muyu lowered her head to look at the frost godhood revolving in her palm. Although there were spirit fruits and abundant spirit energy in this ancient mystic realm, the level of danger was probably no less than that of the Shattered Cauldron world. It would not be easy to survive or even establish a foothold here. Chapter 980. Overnight, the spiritual energy in Lin Muyu's body showed no signs of drying up under the shapeless elephant spell. The spiritual energy turned into divine energy and grew endlessly. This was the powerful effect of the spiritual fruit. The peace heart berry was indeed a great treasure. Eating one could greatly increase the effects of one's cultivation. In addition to the abundant spiritual energy in the arcane realm, Lin Muyu felt that the energy in her body had increased significantly. It was at least equivalent to 10 to 15 days of cultivation in the Shattered Cauldron realm. On the side, Qin Yin, who was lying under the blanket, woke up with a moan. She had fallen asleep unknowingly during her cultivation. It was only because Lin Muyu had spread out the blanket in her cosmos sack that she could sleep so comfortably. Her clear, golden eyes were wide open. Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu. She didn't say anything. Lin Muyu didn't say anything either. She just lovingly caressed Qin Yin's snow-white face with the back of her finger. Qin Yin, on the other hand, closed her eyes and pressed her face against Lin Muyu's palm like a beautiful kitten. Is it morning? Xian opened her eyes and asked. Lin Muyu looked at the ray of sunlight that seeped into the cave and said, it's morning. Sister Xian, how do you feel? I've recovered some of my energy, but it's not enough to turn into light divine energy. Xian opened her palm and let out a soft cry. A ball of milky white fighting energy appeared in her palm. She had recovered to the heavenly realm in one night, and this energy hadn't dissipated. This proved that Xiao and the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's deduction was correct. The results of Xian's cultivation in the primordial arcane realm wouldn't be lost because of the curse of the divine pact. That's great. Tang Xiaoxi sat up and smiled. So much energy has been recovered in just one day. Within a year, Sister Haiyan will definitely recover to the 99th Grotto Heaven realm. Hard to say. Xian smiled faintly and said, it's not as easy to reach the peak of 99 realms as you think. I'm well aware of the recovery speed of my strength. It's impossible for me to return to the peak within 3 years. Holding onto Lin Muyu's shoulder, Qin Yin sat up and asked, what's the plan for today? Continue heading north or stay here? We can't stop. Lin Muyu shook her head. The 4 of us don't have much rations. As gods, we are far less dependent on food than mortals. However, if we keep training at a high intensity, then we must eat our fill every meal. We burned a lot of the holy wolf meat yesterday, so it's only enough for us to eat for 2 days at most. We must continue north and look for new food. Moreover, the spirit fruit won't last long. Perhaps there will be better spirit fruits along the way. We can't be satisfied with this. After packing up their belongings, they cooked another pot of wolf meat. Once everyone was full, they set off on their journey to gain experience. As soon as they left the cave, the sky outside was filled with the cries of eagles. There were 2 almost black eagles crying in the sky, and from time to time wind saws would fly across the sky. These wind saws came and went without a sound. It was too dangerous and no one would be willing to take the risk in the sky. Lin Muyu confirmed the direction and walked in front with her sword in hand. Qin Yin protected Xian in the middle, and Tang Xiaoxi brought up the rear with her god artifact, Gus Spear. The group of people wandered aimlessly through the lush forest. Having just arrived at the secret ground, Lin Muyu knew nothing about this place. In fact, she didn't even have a map of the secret ground. This was not her style at all. Running around like a headless housefly was the worst feeling ever. Thankfully, the forest of the secret ground wasn't too lonely. At noon, Lin Muyu found some fruits on a huge tree. The fruits were as big as a disc and were entirely emerald green. They looked no different from watermelons, except that they were even more crystalline and translucent. Another spirit fruit? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Xian nodded and smiled. Yes, a spirit-cultivated melon. It's a spirit fruit that grows on trees. However, its effects are far inferior to the peaceheart berry and devil's palm banana. It's just a fruit that can quench thirst and nourish the body. After eating it, it can quench thirst and recover strength. As for other things, it's basically useless. But the weather is a little hot now. You go pick one. We'll rest for a while and eat. Yes. Lin Muyu leaped up from the ground and easily plucked a spirit-cultivated melon. When she landed on the ground, she placed it on a rock. She raised a finger and sharp wind elemental law divine energy shot out from her fingertip. Like a divine weapon, she sliced the melon a few times in succession, just like she was slicing a watermelon. The spirit-cultivated melon had already been split into 16 pieces. The flesh inside was purple and emitted a faint fragrance. Xiaoyin. He handed a piece to Qin Yin. At the same time, he used his divine power to take a look. The spirit-cultivated melon was not poisonous and had a pure texture. Qin Yin took a bite and smiled sweetly. So sweet. Thus, the 4 of them surrounded the rock and finished the spirit-cultivated melon. Then Lin Muyu took out the cooked meat from her universe bag and shared it with everyone as lunch. Although everyone's status was very high in their respective planes, this was an arcane realm. Everything had to be simple. The wolf meat was a little sour and it didn't taste very good. Even after it was poured with cooking wine, it still wasn't delicious. But this couldn't be helped. After all, it was the meat of a holy beast. It had sufficient spiritual power, so eating it was beneficial. Just as everyone finished eating the wolf meat, they suddenly heard a very subtle hissing sound. Mortals might not be able to hear it, but Lin Muyu and the others had sharp ears and eyes. They had long sensed a powerful aura approaching. Is it a holy beast? Lin Muyu asked. Something like that. Xian smiled. It's a snake. A snake? Yes. As expected, the grass parted, and a medium-sized venomous snake about 2 meters long slowly slithered out. Its scarlet eyes stared at everyone, and its head was a standard isosceles triangle. Poisonous. Lin Muyu frowned. There's no record of this snake in the Shattered Cauldron Realm's Book of 10,000 Beasts. Do you know it, Sister Xian? Flame petal snake. Look, the patterns on its back are in the shape of petals. It's very beautiful. Xian pursed her red lips and smiled. Although it's not very big, the flame petal snake is one of the most poisonous snakes in the world. A drop of its venom can kill 10 mammoths. It's a fire type and it lives in volcanic areas all year round. It can withstand the magma and survive. The flame petal snake's meat is very delicious. After drinking it, it can prolong one's life and nourish one's beauty. Hee hee. You really know a lot. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's faces were filled with admiration. Xian said, when I was training in the myriad worlds and stars, I have walked through at least thousands of planes. Moreover, I have lived for tens of thousands of years, so there are too many things that I remember in my mind. Perhaps you think that I am more like an old monster. That's not true. Qin Yin hurriedly comforted her, but her face was a little pale. Lin Muyu glanced at Xian and said, which old monster can have such a perfect body and face like yours? If I brought you to my hometown Earth, Sister Xian, you're practically a peerless beauty that's 1 in 100 million. Not to mention being an old monster, how are those young women supposed to live with you? Lin Muyu's words were more powerful and it almost made Shi Yan beam with joy. Pushing Tang Xiaoxi's arm, Shi Yan smiled and said, Xiaoxi, be careful of the flame petal snake's venom. Go and get rid of it. This is a venomous snake that's more than 20,000 years old, so its meat must be even more delicious. After getting rid of it, let you make snake meat soup for us. Not only will it nourish and beautify you, but it will also greatly improve your law of fire. Really? Yes. That's great. Tang Xiaoxi immediately carried her spear and floated away, but she didn't go near the venomous snake. After all, it was more than 20,000 years old and it was not that easy to deal with. She raised her palm from afar and cast a divine seal. Boom. The flame blasted a big pit on the ground, but it didn't kill the flame petal snake. Instead, a fiery red shadow dashed out of the flames and went straight to Tang Xiaoxi's face. It opened its mouth and spat out a scarlet venom. Be careful. Lin Muyu shouted. Tang Xiaoxi was not an ordinary person. She spread her 9 tails behind her and suddenly dodged the flame petal snake's venom. Then she thrust out her spear, and the tip of the spear was enshrouded in a fiery red flame. This was the attack of the Flaming Heart Blade, the power of the 2nd level of the Great Karmic Fire Technique. The Great Karmic Fire Technique was one of the S-level martial arts that Lin Muyu got from Lulu. It was also the most suitable martial arts technique for Tang Xiaoxi to practice. Naturally, she chose it. The Great Karmic Fire Technique was a mental cultivation method for practicing the power of fire. It was completely different from the Fire God Seal, but as long as she practiced it to a higher level, it would be enough to improve Tang Xiaoxi's strength to a new level. In the blazing sound of the wind breaking, the dig's spear directly pierced into the body of the flame petal snake. Immediately the orange-red blood burst out. Hiss hiss. The flame petal snake raised its head again and spat out another mouthful of venom at Tang Xiaoxi in the air. However, Tang Xiaoxi was too fast. Her figure was as graceful as a butterfly and she easily dodged it again. She exerted strength in her hand, and the spear penetrated the flame petal snake's body and nailed it to the rubble. Wu Xian Yuan sword. Tang Xiaoxi was not willing to use the Fire God Seal anymore. It would burn the flame petal snake's body, and she would not be able to use it to make soup. Therefore Lin Muyu's Xianyuan sword was the first choice for a weapon that could easily split a holy beast that had lived for tens of thousands of years. Almost without any hesitation, Lin Muyu raised her hand and threw the long sword out. She used her qi to control the sword from a super long distance, and the long sword slashed into the rubble with a clang. The flame petal snake's head suddenly flew far away, and its body kept wrapping around the handle of the dig's spear. Even though it had lost its head, it was still struggling. Very good, it's taken care of, Shi Yan said with a smile. This flame petal snake is at least 2 meters long. It's enough for the 3 of us to have a full meal. You hurry up and keep it. Chapter 981. For the whole afternoon, they traveled straight north for nearly 70 miles, but they didn't find anything. They didn't find any spirit beasts or spirit fruits. Fortunately, they had enough harvest. The petal snake was enough to make the 3 beauties think about it for the whole afternoon. It was nourishing and beautifying. Who would complain about being too beautiful? Appearance was always a woman's greatest weakness. When night fell, Lin Muyu once again found a suitable campsite in the forest. She lit a bonfire, took out her military pot from her cosmos sack and started to boil the soup. This petal snake was very sturdy. After peeling off its skin, it was chopped into pieces, filling up half the pot. After adding all kinds of seasonings, she started to cook it. Lin Muyu's culinary skills could only be considered average. She didn't learn much from a few old masters of the spiritual fire division and only knew how to eat. When the fragrance of the soup became stronger and stronger, the 3 beauties looked over with faces full of anticipation. Even the eyes of a blazing angel, Shi Yan, lit up like a young girl. It was really hard to imagine how a blazing angel who killed people like flies could have such a gentle gaze. Perhaps she was really tired of war? As Lin Muyu stirred the soup, she thought to herself that when everyone stepped into the God the Arch realm and returned to the Shattered Cauldron realm from the Mystic realm, Shi Yan might have already recovered her cultivation. At that time she would have to ask her for help in conquering the entire Celestial Pole mainland. Wouldn't that be making things difficult for her then? After all, Shi Yan was really tired of war and killing. She seemed to really enjoy the life of traveling with Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. In her eyes, this kind of life was considered living. Who cares about her? Let's eat our fill first. Lin Muyu divided the soup into 3 big bowls and gave them to the 3 beauties. Although the snake meat looked a little scary, Xian, Qin, and Tang Xiaoxi were not ordinary girls. They had experienced countless killings, so eating snake meat was a piece of cake. The snake meat of the flame petal snake was very spicy. When Lin Muyu swallowed the first bite, he felt as if his throat was on fire. That kind of burning sensation was not something ordinary chili could compare to. When the meat entered his stomach, he felt as if a flame was burning inside his body. In just an instant, Lin Muyu's forehead was already covered with sweat. F*C. He couldn't help but curse. At the side, the 3 beauties Xian, Qin, and Tang Xiaoxi stopped at the same time. They carefully tasted and endured the first bite of the flame petal snake meat. Among them, only Tang Xiaoxi was slightly better. After all, she was the most proficient in the law of fire among them. Her resistance to fire was also very strong. Lin Muyu had the paragon personality and was proficient in the 12 laws. However, he mainly cultivated the law of fire, lightning, ice, wind, and so on. Fire was the law he was most proficient in. The first bite of the snake meat made him freeze for almost a minute before he could recover. However, once he endured the torture, he felt a very enjoyable warmth in his stomach. Rich fire spiritual energy seeped into every cell in his body. PM was right. A bite of the flame petal snake meat was equivalent to half a month of cultivation in the law of fire. Instantly, Lin Muyu had a new understanding of the primordial mystic land. How was this training? It was simply a foodie's journey. Could be learned by eating 99 great perfection celestial emperors. At the side, Tang Xiaoxi had completely enjoyed the meat stew. After eating, Tang Xiaoxi hid in a corner of the cave. Her body was surrounded by raging flames. She had to cultivate and integrate the spiritual power as quickly as possible. At the same time, she had to improve the cultivation of the great karmic fire technique. They traveled in the day and cultivated at night. This had become their cultivation routine in the primordial mystic land. However, Lin Muyu still maintained his vigilance. It was her duty to stand guard for everyone. Therefore, every day Lin Muyu only slept for 2 to 3 hours. However, it was enough. At some point in time, Xian and Qin had already fallen asleep. Tang Xiaoxi closed her eyes and continued cultivating. Lin Muyu hugged the Xianyuan sword and leaned close to the cave entrance. She squinted her eyes, but her spiritual perception was still on high alert. Suddenly he opened his eyes. A strong aura was invading. "Wake up. Someone is coming," he said in a low voice. Xian and Qin hurriedly sat up. The other party came very quickly. They were only 10 miles away and they arrived in a split second. Outside the cave, there was a burst of light and rays of light that penetrated the wall of space flickered. Lin Muyu looked on in awe. There were dozens of people appearing outside the cave in an instant. They were all experts of the God realm. The strongest were experts of the God Emperor realm. This group of people was dressed very strangely. They were dressed in the clothes of ancient humans. They looked gentle and refined, but they were all very strong. "This is bad." Xian frowned. Lin Muyu walked out of the cave with the Xianyuan sword in her hand. She looked up at the people in the air. As the light flickered, there were still people arriving. There were more than dozens of them. There might be more than 100 of them. More than 100 God realm experts. This was indeed a big problem. Qin, Tang Xiaoxi and Xian also walked out of the cave. They each took out their weapons and confronted the other party. "Dear friends, we've just arrived here. What's the meaning of this?" Lin Muyu smiled humbly. "In the sky," a man said coldly, "you intruded into our sparrow spirit region without permission, yet you pretended to not know anything. Could it be that our region lord Saint Wolf wasn't killed by you guys?" "The Saint Wolf?" Lin Muyu smiled. "We did kill a wolf that wanted to eat us, but we didn't know it was the Saint Wolf. This must be a misunderstanding. Who is the region lord?" A middle-aged man in a black robe with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes said indifferently, "I am the region lord of the Sparrow region, Feng Zhanlin. Who are you? Judging from your attire, you are not from the 64 regions." "The 64 regions?" Lin Muyu was confused. "Region Lord Feng, my 3 companions and I came from the East Heaven realm. We borrowed your precious land to cultivate. We are all gods of the East Heaven realm. My name is Lin Muyu. Greetings, region lord. You are gods of the God realm." Feng Zhanlin's eyes were cold. "The 64 regions and the God realm have always minded our own business. What are you trying to do recently? Last time there was only one who came and turned the world upside down. This time there are 4 of them. With that, Feng Zhanlin stared at Lin Muyu's sword. Your weapon, why does it have a special aura? Can I take a look? No. Why? Feng Zhanlin raised his eyebrows. Lin Muyu smiled. Don't tell me there are no rules in the 64 domains. In my plane, the rule is that weapons and women are not to be lent to others. How dare you speak to the region lord like that? Another man in a red robe shouted. Brat, don't think you are great just because you are from the god realm. Let me tell you, this is the ancient god realm. You're just some juniors here. It's no big deal. If you dare to disrespect the region lord again, I will make you pay. Feng Zhanlin said coldly, Lin Muyu, since you killed my battle wolf, it seems you stole the devil's palm banana and Ningxinberry, right? Not stole, plucked. We didn't know it was the region lord who planted the spirit fruits. As the saying goes, the ignorant are not guilty. Is this the case? The case. Feng Zhanlin laughed. You're trying to reason with me? Then let me tell you, strength is reason. As long as you can defeat us, reason is on your side. You mean, you have so many people? You want to fight me alone? Lin Muyu frowned. Can't I? Didn't you guys join forces to kill brother Lei Chuanxing? Who is Lei Chuanxing? Stop pretending. Feng Zhanlin said angrily. If you cut off his head, I will also cut off your heads. Lin Muyu had already taken out a heavenly writing tool embryo. If it came down to it, she could only use the heavenly writing to escape. If they really fought, how could she win? There were more than 100 gods watching. Right at this time, Xian's voice entered Lin Muyu's ears like the buzzing of a mosquito. You hold my hand, circulate your formless elephant tactic, and lend me your supreme godhead's force. Let's see if I can intimidate them. Lin Muyu was at a loss. Trust me or we'll be in big trouble, Xian said. All right then. Xian stepped forward and held Lin Muyu's hand nonchalantly. She waved her other hand in front of her, and with a hum, the blazing moon sword slowly emerged. Are you really going to fight? Xian smiled. Lin Muyu let out a muffled groan. The formless elephant tactic in her body spun rapidly, as if it was sucking the god force out of her body. She lent the supreme godhead's power to Xian. Boom! A light element shockwave surged out. In the next moment, Xian borrowed Lin Muyu's god force to enter her blazing angel form. 6 radiant wings spread out behind her, and the blazing moon sword shone brightly. Xian's eyes were filled with killing intent, and the power of the 99 heavens surged. She gritted her teeth and said, You bunch of reckless fools, do you really want to fight me? Feng Zhanlin's face turned pale. He hurriedly landed on his knees and said, So it's Lord Blazing Angel. We have eyes but failed to recognize you. Please forgive us, Lord Blazing Angel. He turned around and looked at the crowd with a cold gaze. In an instant, over 100 gods fell to their knees. Majestic and domineering, this was the name of the Blazing Angel. Lin Muyu wanted to die. She saw that Xian was an honest and kind girl, but she was even better at bluffing people than herself. She really had to give it to her. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi maintained a vigilant expression. Their power had increased a lot and they could more or less cheer Lin Muyu up. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, felt as if all of his power was being sucked away. With his current cultivation, he couldn't withstand such a strong aura. Xian sensed Lin Muyu's uneasiness, so she retracted her 6 wings and returned to the gentle and quiet woman. She smiled and said, Me and you have just arrived at the treasure land. Is this how the domain Lord Feng treats us? Feng Zhanlin shuddered. I know I was wrong. Someone invite Lord Blazing Angel and her friends back to the domain castle. Chapter 982. Feng Zhanlin and the other gods made way for them. The black-faced god respectfully said, Lord Blazing Angel, the domain castle of Sparrow Spirit Domain is only 100 miles away from here. We will arrive in a moment. I will send someone back to arrange a banquet. No need. Xian shook her head. Let's fly back slowly. As for food, forget it. Yu Xin and Xiaoxi have just arrived. We want to know more about the prehistoric mystery realm. Let's talk about this when we get back to the domain castle. This is the outer region after all. It's more dangerous. Oh? Then let's go. Lead the way. Yes. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stood on the left and right, supporting Xian like 2 guards as they ascended. No one would have thought that the identity of a seraph would be so useful, allowing them to travel freely in the primordial mystery land. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for them to escape this calamity. Feng Zhanlin continued to fly beside Xian respectfully. His expression was full of admiration as he said, "As far as I know, the Blazing Angel has always been under the jurisdiction of the Western Divine Realm, and this ancient secret realm is under the jurisdiction of the Eastern Heaven Realm. Why has Lord Blazing Angel suddenly come here? And the secret realm's passage is very strange. Ordinary people can't find this place." Xian's eyes were calm. "Xiao brought us here." "Xiao." Feng Zhanlin shuddered. A trace of astonishment flashed across his eyes. "What's wrong? Regent Lord Feng knows Xiao?" Lin Muyu asked. "Yes." Feng Zhanlin took a deep breath. "Who doesn't know Fairy Xiao? She came to the prehistoric mystery realm a few years ago and she immediately caused a huge commotion. She destroyed the Spirit Wind region and the ancient Desolate region, and at the same time she defeated many other regions. The entire prehistoric mystery realm pales at the mention of her name. It seems like the sword in your hand is really the Xianyuan sword? Master, you've noticed?" Lin Muyu chuckled. "How could I not see it?" Feng Zhanlin smiled bitterly. The Xianyuan sword was originally the treasure of the ancient baron's domain. Xiao wanted to borrow the Xianyuan sword, but the domain lord refused, so she had no choice but to take action. However, no one in the ancient baron's domain expected this beautiful woman to be so powerful. She destroyed the entire ancient baron's domain, destroyed the domain castle, expelled the disciples and took the Xianyuan sword. I didn't expect to see this peerless sword here. Oh, I see. Lin Muyu looked straight into Feng Zhanlin's eyes and was surprised to find that there was no greed in Feng Zhanlin's eyes when he looked at the Xianyuan sword. Instead there was only love and reverence. It seemed that Feng Zhanlin wasn't a greedy person. Otherwise he would have definitely ordered his subordinates to kill them. After all, the Xianyuan sword was too precious. At this moment Qin Yin said, "Wind Region Lord, tell us about the ancient secret land. We know nothing about this place." "Yes." Feng Zhanlin nodded and said to the wind, "The ancient secret land is the domain of the ancient gods. Many famous ancient gods have set foot here and left behind many gods. For tens of thousands of years, the entrance to the secret land has been sealed and can only be opened by external forces. Therefore the gods in the secret land can't leave. Generation after generation, the inheritance and cultivation have formed a total of 64 domains." 64 domains? Lin Muyu asked. "Yes. There are a total of 64 domains, and each domain is governed by a domain master with unfathomable power. Living in the prehistoric mystery realm are not only gods, but also some terrifying creatures such as those giant snakes that wriggle in the depths of the earth, the hidden dragons that wander in the sky, and the hermits that live in the wild forests. These creatures can pose a threat to the lives of the gods. In order to defend against the attacks from the outside world, each domain has built a domain fortress that is protected by an impenetrable wall. The fortress lives on endlessly, reproducing for generations." Feng Zhanlin smiled awkwardly. "I'm not afraid to laugh at you, but my domain castle was inherited from my father's generation. Compared to other domains, the Spirit Sparrow domain is perhaps the weakest of the 64 domains. That's why I cultivate spirit fruits in the wild, but I didn't expect to meet you. We thought the spirit fruits were wild, so we picked them. Please forgive us, Region Lord," Lin Muyu said politely. Feng Zhanlin laughed. "Young hero Lin is too polite. It's rare for Lord Blazing Angel to come to my small Spirit Sparrow domain. It's my honor. Since you've eaten the spirit fruits, there are many of them in the 64 domains. After returning to the domain castle, there are still many spirit fruits in my backyard. If you need anything, just take them." Lin Muyu was a little suspicious. She looked at Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi and smiled at each other. Feng Zhanlin was really too enthusiastic to the point that it was ridiculous. Tang Xiaoxi held the Tig's spear in her right hand and held Lin Muyu's palm with her left. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be able to speak as she looked at Feng Zhanlin. Her meaning was self-evident. Feng Zhanlin was so enthusiastic that he must have a request. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu didn't have any good ideas. She could only use her identity as a blazing angel to scare Feng Zhanlin and the others. Otherwise there would be big trouble. Judging from the breaths, Feng Zhanlin was an 84th Heaven Grotto Heaven Divine Emperor. His brother, the black-faced man Feng Zhanhai, was a 72nd heaven divine emperor. There were also many divine emperors and divine kings among the guards around them. There was no chance of winning against such a group of gods. The only thing they could do now was to deceive them to the end. Lin Muyu frowned and asked, Regent Lord Feng, are these gods from the domain castle? How many of you are there and how strong are each domain? Feng Zhanlin said, we have a total of 7 divine emperors in the Spirit Sparrow domain. Lei Chuanqing was mistakenly killed by you. There are also 54 divine kings, 300 hierarch and more than 5,000 servants, all living in the domain castle. Servants? Yes. Feng Zhanlin said, most of them are mortals. They were originally savages living in the prehistoric secret territory. As the battle of the gods began, they lost all hope of survival. In the end, they became the followers of the gods, responsible for farming, herding, serving the gods, and so on. To put it bluntly, they are just a group of believers. Oh right. Regent Lord said that you inherited the Spirit Sparrow domain from your father's generation. Where are they? Dead. Even gods can die. Lin Muyu was shocked. Feng Zhanlin smiled. Of course. My father and a few uncles were all divine emperors, but they died in the ancient desolation domain. My grandfather died of old age. Old age? Aren't gods immortal? The gods of the heaven realm are indeed immortal. However, we are just a group of forgotten people. We have long been deprived of our right to immortality. Divine emperors are only about 20,000 years old. Divine kings and hierarchs are even rarer. Some hierarchs with shallow cultivation can only live for 500 years before dying of old age. Feng Zhanlin said with a sigh, I entered the divine realm at the age of 28. Well, I am more than 500 years old, but I have aged so much. Lin Muyu remained silent. Everyone had their own destiny. Wealth and honor depended on the heavens. Suddenly, a towering city appeared in the distant forest. The city walls were over 20 meters tall. Additionally, there were blood-red barriers all over the city walls. The friction between the barriers and the air around them created fiery sparks. It gave off the impression that there was a barrier protecting the entire city. We have reached the domain castle. Feng Zhanlin proudly pointed at the city in the distance and said, that is my Lingke castle. Feng Zhanlin seemed to have noticed Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and the others' doubts. He explained with a smile, every domain fortress must be built with arrays to resist the wind saws that are omnipresent in the wind. These arrays took our ancestors thousands of years to build. Tang Xiaoxi said, oh right, why haven't we encountered any wind saws along the way? Feng Zhanlin couldn't help but laugh. Miss Xiaoxi, you might not know this, but our flight path just now was following the path of the mountain ridge. There's an old saying in our 64 domains, clear streams have few fish and there's no wind at the top of the mountain. It's the same principle. The wind saws are derived from the energy deep beneath the mountain, and only the mountain ridge region won't have wind saws. This is one of the survival rules that must be learned in the primordial secret realm. I see. So much knowledge. Lin Muyu smiled. Of course. Let's enter the domain castle. With that, everyone landed. Feng Zhanlin looked at a small hole in the domain castle and said, someone open the door. It's the domain lord. Someone on the wall said. Soon the sealed door slowly opened. Feng Zhanlin bowed to Xian and said respectfully, Lord Blazing Angel and guests, please come in. Qin Yin supported Xian and floated in. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi followed closely behind. After entering the domain castle, the architectural style of the place made people's eyes light up. Towering towers were connected together and the houses were connected by white walls. There were also servants selling vegetables, fruits and livestock everywhere. The inside and outside of the domain castle were really two different worlds. The outside was the wilderness, but the inside was filled with outstanding people. Moreover, the architectural style here made Lin Muyu think hard for a long time. She just felt that it was a little familiar. After thinking for a long time, she suddenly realized that it was the style of the Warring States period. That's right, the architecture here was very similar to the Qin and Han styles of the Warring States period of China. The huge pavilions were pleasing to the eye, as if she had traveled thousands of years ago. Looking up, the bright sunlight shone through the domain castle, but upon a closer look, it was not empty, but covered with a layer of transparent crystal. Feng Zhanlin smiled. That is amber crystal, a treasure from the depths of the earth. The domain castle needs sunlight to grow crops, so the ancestors used amber crystal to create this huge cauldron. It isolates the wind saws but not the sunlight so that the people in the domain castle can live and work in peace without being disturbed by outside threats. Chapter 983. In the depths of the domain castle, the domain lord manor was like a small Qin Han palace. Before entering the manor, a group of maids had already walked out and lined up in 2 rows. They said respectfully, "Domain lord, please return to the manor." Lin Muyu grinned. "The people in the secret territory really know how to enjoy themselves," Feng Zhanlin said awkwardly. "This is the standard configuration of the 64 domains. Every domain is the same. It's a rule passed down by the ancestors, so I didn't break it." Feng Zhanhai said, "Brother, there's no need to explain so much. Let's go in." It was early in the morning. Feng Zhanlin turned to the group of godly kings and godly venerables and said, "Since the mission has been completed, everyone can go back to the manor. The few distinguished guests can stay in the domain lord manor. If there's anything else, I'll gather everyone again." "Yes, domain lord." The godly gods bowed and then left. Entering the domain lord manor, it was a dazzling sight. The lights were like torches and the smell of delicious food filled their noses. It seemed that Feng Zhanlin had arranged for a sumptuous banquet in advance. In the hall, dozens of armored guards stood guard. In the center of the hall was a large table filled with delicacies. Feng Zhanlin smiled and said, "Distinguished guests, please take a seat. Don't stand on ceremony, just treat it as your own home. My Lingke castle is poor and can't be compared to some large domain castles, so this is all I can provide. I hope you don't mind." "Don't mention it, domain lord is too polite." After sitting down, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were still a little wary. After all, it was their first time here. Moreover, Feng Zhanlin was a little too enthusiastic, so they had no idea what he wanted. "Serve the wine." Feng Zhanlin sat down and said, "Zhanhai, come sit with us and have a few drinks with the distinguished guests." Feng Zhanhai was a boorish man, so he naturally loved wine. He accepted the order and sat down. The wine tasted sweet and fragrant. The wine from the ancient secret territory had a different flavor compared to the Shattered Realm. However, Lin Muyu obviously didn't have the mood to drink and have fun here. She couldn't say anything because she didn't know what Feng Zhanlin was planning. She could only wait for him to speak first. Even after they had eaten and drank, Feng Zhanlin didn't say anything. Instead, he ordered a few maids to bring Lin Muyu and the others to their residence. The residence was the most beautiful place of the domain lord manor. There were 4 rooms in a small courtyard. It was very quiet and elegant. Feng Zhanlin followed behind and said respectfully, "The spirit fruit garden is next to the back garden. If you don't mind, I can show you around the spirit fruit garden." "Master, this Feng of Manor, of domain Lord. Of the Lord of Feng of Lord sect. We Lord of Saint. We Ming. Of Feng of Lord. Outside the spirit orchard there was a forest of guards. There were even 2 deity kings standing guard at the entrance. Under Feng Zhanlin's lead, Lin Muyu and the rest entered the garden. The moment they entered, it was as if they had entered a different world. The garden was filled with rugged ancient rocks and towering trees. The moment they entered the garden, they saw more than 10 peace heart berry trees. This was a real plantation. "These are the peace heart berries you picked. They are considered mid-grade spirit fruits of the spirit garden." Feng Zhanlin smiled and walked in front. "Everyone, look over there." Amidst the craggy rocks, rosy fruits the size of cherries actually grew out of the rocks. It was extremely magical. They looked crystal clear, round, and extremely alluring. "This is..." Xian didn't seem to know what it was. "Female stone fruit." Feng Zhanlin proudly caressed this unique stone and said, "The female stone fruit is a rare spirit fruit. It is a treasure. There are only 3 female stones in the entire 64 domains that produce female stone flowers, and this is one of them. The female stone fruit has a miraculous effect on cultivating laws. Eating 1 female stone fruit is equivalent to increasing one's law compatibility by 10 years. "No way." Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Feng Zhanlin smiled faintly. "The female stone will only bloom and bear fruit after 10,000 years. This female stone of mine just bloomed and bore fruit last year. These esteemed guests are very lucky. Men, pick 4 female stone fruits for our esteemed guests to taste." his domain lord. Two maids respectfully walked forward and began to pick the fruits on the stone. Feng Zhanhai, who was at the side, had a drunken look on his face as he said, "Brother, this female stone fruit only grew 11 fruits. Even you and I can't bear to eat it. How can you?" "Shut up." Feng Zhanlin scolded in a low voice. "What do you know?" Qin Yin observed his expression and said, "Domain Lord, we have just arrived at the Spirit Sparrow Castle. Let's forget about it. How can we eat such a precious spirit fruit?" Feng Zhanlin said, "Miss Xin, don't think too much. Since you are here, then you are fated. Moreover, Madame Xian is a blazing angel. I, Feng Zhanlin, am able to offer Madame Blazing Angel a spirit fruit. This is the blessing of 3 lifetimes." Qin Yin wanted to say something, but Lin Muyu grabbed her hand and said, "Since Domain Lord has good intentions, then Xiao Yin, we will appreciate it. Otherwise, Domain Lord will be disappointed." "But big brother, you." Qin Yin was a bit hesitant. However, Lin Muyu's voice floated into Qin Yin's ears like a gossamer. "Xiao Yin, Sister Xian said that Xiao Shi's divine spark could evolve into a fire over God's spark at any time. This female stone fruit has a miraculous effect on the laws of nature. Perhaps it will help Xiao Shi's divine spark grow. For Xiao Shi's sake, we can't refuse." Qin Yin nodded and nodded with a cheerful smile. The 4 sparkling fruits on the plate were suffused with dense spiritual energy. It was as if they were wrapped in mist and didn't need to be washed. Feng Zhanlin said with a smile, "Honored guests, please have a taste." Lin Muyu walked forward and blocked the 3 beauties. "Domain Lord, how about we open the window and talk about light?" "What do you mean, young hero?" "Domain Lord, you can tell us directly. What do you need us to do for you or for Lingke Castle? We can only eat these precious fruits if we tell you first. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be able to eat them." Feng Zhanlin was startled, then laughed heartily. Young hero Lin Muyu is indeed a straightforward person. Then I, Feng Zhanlin, will not hide it from you. Our Lingke Castle's spirit orchard is known as the #1 spirit orchard in the Southern Territory. Not only do we have female stone fruits, we also have a rare immortal tree that can bear cast immortal fruits. However, Lingke Castle's strength is only at the lower end of the 64 domains. So many domain castles have always coveted our spirit orchard. I think that since Lord Blazing Angel is here, we should stay for a while and at least protect her. Just because of this. Yes. All right then. Lin Muyu held a female stone fruit and handed it to Tang Xiaoxi. "Xiaoxi, open your mouth." Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes were filled with shyness. Ah. But she still opened her mouth and ate the female stone fruit that Lin Muyu fed her. Then Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Shi Yan each ate a fruit. Since it was good stuff, they shouldn't miss it. In any case, they came to the secret realm to seek more power. Moreover, the female stone fruit's spirit energy was very pure. Lin Muyu used her spirit sense to know that it was not poisonous, so eating it was fine. After eating it, a warm current slowly flowed from her stomach. The miraculous effect of the female stone fruit seemed to be very slow and needed some time to take effect. Since she wasn't in a hurry to cultivate, Lin Muyu asked, "Domain Lord Feng, you mentioned the immortal tree just now. What is it?" "Immortal tree." Zhan Lin's face was full of longing as he said, "Our ancestor found it in the depths of the wilderness. The immortal tree only bears a fruit every 10,000 years. This fruit is called the cast immortal fruit. After eating it, one can form a cast immortal fruit. This is a peerless fruit that can turn a mortal into an immortal. This immortal tree has just borne a cast immortal fruit, but Zhan Hai and I haven't decided who should eat it. We're both afraid of being targeted, so we're very nervous." "You and the Deputy Region Master don't have forged immortal fate?" "That's right. Zhan Hai and I are both cultivators of the Heavenly Dao Lattice. In the vast Heavenly Dao, it is extremely difficult to advance to the cast immortal lattice, so this cast immortal fruit is extremely important to us. I plan to eat it after I reach the peak of the 90th heavenly layer. That way I will be able to obtain even more power. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. This is indeed troublesome." Feng Zhan said, "So we need young hero and Lord Blazing Angel's power to protect the celestial tree for a period of time. I will break through as soon as possible." "I got it." Right at this moment, Tang Xiaoxi suddenly let out a whimper. Faint divine power of fire had already seeped out of her body. Her face was burning red, so moist that it seemed like water could drip out. Her eyes were filled with tenderness as she looked at Lin Muyu and said, Moo, I feel so uncomfortable. The female stone fruit is working. Lin Muyu grabbed Tang Xiaoxi's hand and said, "Come, let's hurry and send Xiaoxi back to her room. Don't let her miss this great opportunity to break through." Xian nodded and smiled. "All right." Inside the room, Tang Xiaoxi was kneeling on the ground. Her entire body was overflowing with scorching flames, but Lin Muyu and Qin Yin were still standing guard at the side. Xian could only watch from afar because of her lack of strength. Streams of flames flowed around Tang Xiaoxi's body like surging water, coming out of her dantian and circulating throughout her body before returning to her dantian. With every circulation, the flames grew stronger until Lin Muyu and Qin Yin couldn't help but sweat profusely, drenching their clothes. Wu. After an unknown amount of time, Tang Xiaoxi suddenly let out a cry. She unconsciously raised her hands in front of her. Instantly, the flames surged and spun rapidly. The high-temperature flames formed a whirlpool-like energy domain. She had already broken through the third stage of the Great Karmic Fire technique, Divine Flame Whirlpool. But immediately after, a golden light appeared between Tang Xiaoxi's brows. It was her cast Immortal fate. Bang! The exterior of the cast Immortal fate suddenly exploded, and the scene was extremely shocking. Within the shards of the divine fate, a newborn divine fate that was only the size of a grain of rice started burning. Although it was extremely small, its power was extraordinary. "The Master God of Flames has finally appeared, Xian said with a gratified smile.